Scout salute, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard, post the colors.
There. Guess we're gonna check.
Color guard dismissed. You may be seated.
It's an analog clock.
Looks like the meeting's starting. Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, December 18th, Pembroke Select Board meeting. Please note that this meeting is being made available to the public through a live video and audio broadcast on Comcast Government Access Channel 9 and YouTube channel at Pembroke Meetings LS, and is being recorded for broadcast at future dates. Comments made in open session will be recorded. Thank you, Scouts, for leading. Our schedule first, well, do we have any announcements before we begin? Nothing. Our first scheduled appointment is at 7 o'clock, the American Legion presentation of Medal of Liberty to the Carter family. Mr. McPhillips, would you like to come up and share why we're here?
Hi, I'm David McPhillips. I'm the town's Veterans Officer, and we're all here tonight because we honor a veteran that died almost 80 years ago. There's his picture right behind Tracy. Tracy, you might want to point that out. We've looked at that for years. And this all came about because one afternoon, Lieutenant Carter's granddaughter, Lisa Chadwick, she was driving by the First Church. And as you all know, we put some plaques down. Those are new, the last few years. And she got out of her car and read this. And she called the Veterans Office. Mrs. Whitman answered, and she said, I didn't know anything about this with my granddad. She said, do you know anything else? And yes, we do, because thank you to Everett Reed. He composed a book. A lot of the World War II veterans that passed aside, he wrote everything about them that he could. And so we passed that along. In the narrative was something about Lieutenant Carter was very proud to have a brand new son. I asked Lisa, do you know where that son is today? And she said, yes, he lives with me. And so we hear it right here today, Mr. Carter. And so I asked, well, you know, your family is a Gold Star family. Now I get you and apply for the Medal of Liberty. And this is what happened, and that's why we're here tonight. So if I could introduce from the American Legion, Marie Hughes. She can tell us more about Lieutenant Carter.
Thank you. Robert Beryl Carter was born on the 20th of November 1919 in Boston, Massachusetts. His parents were Percy Carter and Christine Alceda Burkett. He would later have a sister, Faith. His father, Percy, was a commercial traveler and salesman of metal abrasives used in engraving, and by 1942, Percy was working for an engraver in Boston. Christine, his mother, attended Bridgewater Normal School, what we now refer to as Bridgewater State University. Though born in Boston, he grew up from a very early age in Pembroke. During Robert's childhood, his family had at least 3 residences in Pembroke: West Elm Street, Barker Street, and Oldham Street. His connection to Pembroke was actually multi-generational. His mother, Christine, was born in Bridgewater in 1893. By 1910, her family was living in Pembroke. Her father was a carpenter named Augustus Leroy Burkett, and Christine's paternal grandmother, Robert's great-grandmother, a woman named Elsada Baker Burkett, married her second husband in 1897, a man named William Ellis Bryant, and they lived in Pembroke. As noted, Robert was living in Pembroke from a very young age. His birth record states he was born in 1919, and on the 1920 census, his family is living on West Elm Street, actually next door to his maternal grandparents and great-grandmother. In the 1930 census, the family is living on Barker Street. Robert's great-grandmother, Elzada Bryant, was also living with them. In 1938, he graduated from Pembroke High School. He was the valedictorian. In the 1940 census, the family lives on Oldham Street. Robert is a second-year student at Brown University in Rhode Island. He is working for the NYA, the National Youth Association, as a filing clerk. The National Youth Association was a part of the New Deal. Its intent was to provide work and education for women and men between the ages of 16 and 25. On July 1, 1941, Robert registered for the World War II draft in Marshfield, Massachusetts. The description of Robert on his draft card is race white, eyes brown, hair brown, complexion light, height 5'11", and weight 145 pounds. In January 1942, this information was transferred to Rhode Island because he was a student at Brown University and resided in Rhode Island for most of the year. While a senior at Brown, Robert enlisted in the Naval Air Corps Reserve. He was ordered to active duty on February 12, 1942. His training took him to Squantum, Massachusetts, Quonset, Rhode Island, Atlanta, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. On the 12th of September 1942, Robert Verrill Carter married Irene Lana Bensley in Duval County, Florida. On November 3, 1942, he was chosen for Marine Aviation. He received his wings and his second lieutenant commission. In January 1943, he was sent to San Diego for training in carrier landings. He received further training in El Toro, California, and on June 6, 1943, he was commissioned a first lieutenant in El Centro, California. First Lieutenant Carter was a pilot with VMTB 232, the Red Devil Squadron. On July 4, 1943, the Red Devil Squadron 232 left San Diego, California for combat duty in the Southwest Pacific, the Solomon Islands. On the 19th of September 1943, Robert Verrill Carter, Jr. was born in San Diego, California. Lieutenant Carter had his one proud father moment. When he received word of his son's birth, he drove around one of the islands in a Jeep handing out cigars, as was the custom. On September 23, 1943, just 4 days after the birth of his son, Lieutenant Carter and crew began a series of 11 combat missions that would span a 6-week stretch. These missions included attacks on 3 different islands. These attacks were on gun positions and airfields and airstrips. Some of these missions were scheduled on consecutive days. You can imagine how physically and mentally exhausting this schedule was. The last mission, on November 1st, was an attack on enemy positions on beaches at Express Augusta Bay, Bougainville Island. This attack was made less than 5 minutes before our ground troops landed. On November 2nd, 1943, Lieutenant Carter and crew were relieved and sent to Sydney, Australia for some much-earned and deserved R&R, rest and relaxation. On the morning of Tuesday, the 23rd of November, 1943, Lieutenant Carter and his crew, along with others, prepared to leave Sydney and return to their home base. There were 25 souls on board that transport plane. Per the report of the Aviation Safety Network, radio contact was established at 0810 hours. At 0910 hours, the aircraft failed to respond to a scheduled call. 2 days later, damaged gear and some personal effects from the plane were found in Naked Bay. A cold front had passed through the New Caledonia area in the early hours of the 23rd. bringing clouds, decreased visibility, and rain. The route was considered flyable on instruments, and several aircraft had made successful flights that day. The bodies of the 6 crew members and 19 passengers were never found. In a letter written to Reverend Harold Wilson of Providence, Rhode Island, Lieutenant Carter stated, and I quote, "It will surprise you perhaps to hear that the majority of my fellow flyers attend church regularly and place their bodies and souls in a true faith in God and trust in His help. We must, of necessity, place our faith in Him, for each day our lives are in His hands. True, many of my friends have had fatal crashes. We who live do have a God to trust in, a God to help us, and in that we are truly thankful. It is for that we shall gladly, if necessary, give up our lives." End quote. First Lieutenant Robert Verrill Carter was awarded posthumously the Purple Heart, the Air Medal, and Gold Star in lieu of a second Air Medal with citations. Lieutenant Carter and all those lost in that crash are remembered at the Honolulu Memorial in Honolulu, Hawaii. Thank you. I put it together. I do a wonderful job. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. John, I believe you have something that you would like to read?
Yes. To all who shall these presents greetings, this is to certify that the Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, authorized by Chapter 132 of the Acts of 2009, has presented the Medal of Liberty for Lieutenant Robert V. Carter, United States Marine Corps. The Medal of Liberty shall be awarded to the next of kin of service men and women from the Commonwealth killed in action or who died in service while in a designated combat area, in the line of duty, or who died as a result of wounds received in action, or who died as a result of a training accident in the line of duty. Signed, Governor Maura T. Healy and Gary W. Keefe, Major General, the Adjutant General.
Thank you. Would like to present the citation of the medal. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Tracy,
Yeah,
do you want to take 5?
Do you want to take 5 minutes?
Yeah, just turn it on.
Sure, we can take a 5-minute break. Why don't we do that then? Take a 5-minute break so that we can just say our goodbyes. And I believe that you're going to be out in the hallway here? Yes, okay. We just let that TV know?
They know.
Thank you. Our next scheduled appointment is not until 7:30, so we're going to run through a few board action items. The first is to vote to accept the resignation of Robert Kenny from Advisory Committee. Do I have a motion?
I would move to accept the resignation of Robert Kenny from the Advisory Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We also need to vote to accept the minutes of December 4th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, as well. Town manager's report. Bill, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I actually only have a couple of things this evening. I want to announce our holiday hours for Christmas and New Year's. We'll be closing on the 24th at 12 noon and reopening on the 26th at 8 a.m. for Christmas. And we'll be closing at 3 p.m. on 12/31 and reopening at 8 a.m. on January 2nd for New Year's. That's all I had officially, unless you have some questions you'd like me to answer.
Well, I have something, Bill, that it doesn't have to be answered tonight, but if you could put it on your radar. It's going to be coming up during the budget and capital planning anyway. And it ties in a little bit with the water, but they're essentially separate departments, the DPW. The stormwater management plan that we have, the law changed, I don't know, it might be 7 years ago by now, to make municipalities come up to a certain code or a certain level, and I know that we've been working toward that. So as you're considering in this budget cycle, the capital plan for the stormwater management, I'd just like a kind of like a pinpointed, a little more better update on the board when you get to that subject. We don't seem to focus on it a lot. And I think it's like, it's good every couple of years to put a magnifying glass on it. Where are we? Because when the drainage structures in the roadways need work or need future work, it's always a big dollar item. And it affects more than just a catch basin, it's the catch basins around. So if you could focus on that, and when you do present your budget, expand on it a little more and give us a little more in depth of what the future plan is, or maybe some red line areas, yellow line areas, green line areas of focus. On the map.
Absolutely. And for those who don't know what happened with stormwater management, the US EPA along with Mass DEP instituted some regulations for cities and towns for stormwater management that started, I believe it was 6.5 years ago, so you're pretty close when you said 7 years. And it's an incremental approach to how we manage stormwater. The initial approach was to identify where all of your stormwater goes. What catch basins do you have, where are your outflows? The next phases were to make sure that we mapped all of those and made sure that they were functioning correctly, and there wasn't contamination related to that. Municipal properties, such as our parking lot out here, we've had to identify where that drainage goes. And as we move forward through that process, we're even going to have to, as we put in new stormwater management facilities or structures, we're actually going to have to begin to, any contamination or anything that goes in through that structure, we're going to have to clean it. So that's going to come as it's not here yet. We're in compliance today, but as we move through the years, that's going to come as a tremendous cost to the town. If you think about how many cars, park out here on a daily basis, or even let's look at the high school, how many cars park at the high school, and that's stormwater. And if you're cleaning every bit of oil that drops from those vehicles, it does become a task. So it's a good thing. I mean, we don't want that water, that oil in our lakes and ponds and streams. So, but there is a cost to do that. So I'm happy to present that as we work through the budget.
Thank you. Anything else?
It was good filler.
Do we have any liaison updates tonight?
I only have one. The COA, Council on Aging, had their monthly meeting. Everything went well, the usual kind of subject. The only thing I want to do is give a heads up to the bylaw committee and my colleague, Mr. Flynn here, that they might be coming towards the bylaw committee to see what has changed with their own authority, that they might be tweaking certain things. Since the Town Manager Act came through in 18, their authority as hiring practice and all that goes away.
but they're also looking at possibly tweaking a few items to make sure that they know what they're doing properly for the Council on Aging Board. So I just want to give you a heads up.
Yeah, I think we're going to meet in January, so if they want to connect with me, I'll put it on the agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's it.
Anyone else? Do we have any old business? I have a little thing. Do we have an update on Laggy? Where are we at with Laggy?
Okay, so we are engaged with engineers. There's a multi-phase plan for Laggy. We presented minimally to the Conservation Commission at their last, the last meeting. Can't remember if they had a meeting last week or not. They didn't, they haven't. So they approved the waiver on the peer review as a whole for what we've done. So we mapped the property. They have approved the waiver that we're not going to peer review what we've mapped. It makes absolutely no sense to do so. So we no longer have to do that. As we go forward with projects that are going to be within the wetland structure, then we will flag that for them. It's already flagged, but we will put that on an engineering plan, and then they will peer review at that point just that phase, which I am completely comfortable with. That makes sense. Peer reviewing the 20-some-odd acres out there that we've done that we're not going to touch, the majority of made no sense. It was just a tremendous cost to the town to do that because of the volume and the mass of that property. So I'm actually very pleased with the approach they took. I think it's smart for the town as a whole. As we do individual projects, we will engineer those and peer those. We are currently in engineering for phase 1, which is just to clean up the front, put in parking. Phase 2 would be to clean up the trails and potentially, there may be some opposition, I don't know, but potentially put a bridge over that stream that's on one of those trails, because currently you walk kind of.
There was previously a bridge
There was
there.
previously a bridge there, but you walk gingerly through because that bridge is no longer functioning. And then phase 3 would be any structures that we may add, gazebo type of thing, or a function.
chose to.
If we choose to, correct.
Do we have a time frame for any
So,
of this?
so phase 1 would likely be within the next construction season,
Okay.
assuming we get all of the approvals and all of the engineering work completed timely to do that. So keep in mind, it's just the driveways in and a parking area. We are still studying bathrooms. We may not do bathrooms. There may be just a cost that the town can't afford right now to do
Personally,
that.
I'd rather not. I would rather parking
Well,
and trails.
We have folks that regularly ask for bathroom space, both for the herring run and for logging, and other properties in town. We have people that ask for bathrooms at Magoon. We have people that ask for, now you're gonna put me on the spot because I can't remember the name of it. It's the playground and ball field that are.
I feel like those make more sense. There's so many people there at the same time, people playing baseball or
So-
sports, and, yeah.
So, we get as many requests for the Laggy property and the herring run for that. There's significant events there every year.
All right,
But that's the update where we're at.
that's exciting.
Moving forward,
Finally.
it's taken a while,
I
that's
know.
for sure.
I'll be glad to see this one officially open, and then we'll need to update the sign.
Yeah, the sign will
sign
be
says
part of
future home.
The sign will be part of the parking
Yep.
structure, that certainly.
And is the parking just going to be, we don't know yet.
And it will, the preliminary that we've talked about is that you would have driveway in on this side of the property, which would be the southwest side of the property,
right.
into a parking area, and a driveway out on the northeast part of the property. So you have
So the exit is more toward 53.
it's because it gets you away from that curve.
Yeah, I was going to say
You don't want to be exiting
visual-
close to the curb there. You want to be exiting as far away so your sight lines are
really hard to
people that
see.
are already around that corner and coming to the southwest
Plus the
have,
crosswalk is there.
have good sight lines. So,
I got a little bit of old business. Any updates on NOIs for Concom for all of the projects?
so we will be doing that as we move through the spring, and that's all part of this engineering that's
Okay.
included with logging. So,
Do you think you plan on like in that, the construction for these to all start kind of at the same time, since that the town has already appropriated all that funding?
It's not likely that they will start, they'll be phased.
Could you explain that better for the public?
Sure. So we've asked to upgrade all of our, you're talking about all the beaches and all of those structures. So
NIL.
NOI is a notice of intent, and a notice of intent is important because anytime that anyone, not just the town, but in this case it's the town, does any work near or around wetlands, you have to file a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission, and they have to approve your plans to do that work. We have plans to improve the docks at all of our beaches. We have plans to improve the boat ramps at 3 of the 4, because one doesn't have a boat ramp, and just generally improve the area around every one of our 4 town beaches. The importance of an NOI is that the Conservation Commission reviews your engineering plans, make sure we're not filling in wetlands, make sure that we're, doing it properly, and that within, the Wetlands Protection Act. That's important. We filed one previously when we did the work at Town Landing, when we improved the building and some of the walkway space over there. There's a phase 2 and a phase 3 to that project that we will be filing notice of intent with the Conservation Commission for. So,
Thank you.
One quick question, the library roof, where were we at with that?
so library roof is, we had a huge debate because we have our HVAC systems. I was going to call them rooftop units, and people may not know what rooftop units are, but we have 2 rooftop units on the roof. That one is failing and one is at the end of its useful life. We have a plan to replace those, and the discussion was that we would do that work ahead of the roof. So we were posted to go out to bid for the roof. We've now pushed that off a little bit. I have the bids in front of me for the rooftop units, to move forward with those as quickly as we can, and we'll do the roof as soon as possible after those are complete.
Are they the new systems?
They are, and that's why it's delayed a little bit, because we had previously bid for the systems, and now the state changed the regulation on the system. The Freon is a different system. Some people have been in my office screaming at me that it's not as safe as the old system, that it's more like a butane type of system. I don't know. I'm familiar with the old system. I could describe when we've gone from the change we did 15 years ago to the change we did about 12 years ago on the cooling structure. I can tell you all about those. I can't tell you anything about the new system, so I don't know. But the fact is that the requirements are for the new system. We're going forward with the new system. It's better for the environment, and it's more cost effective. And one of the things we're doing is we're actually getting a slight rebate from National Grid for that. So that will help us to as we move forward.
And on that, Bill, did you do a study or a cost-benefit analysis of moving away from rooftop units to split wall-mounted units?
So we did. We actually took a look at that, and we are moving away from some of the bigger units we have at some of the other structures. At the library, it doesn't make sense. It's more costly to actually move it to the ground because of the way it's set up in the library. All that structure is above the lower level, so you would have to replace all of that structure within the building to be able to go from the rooftop unit to a ground-mounted unit.
Yeah, and I ask, because Rich and I have had discussions on this as well as others, that, the less you have on a sloping roof, the better,
Yeah, absolutely.
for obvious reasons.
Anything else?
That's all.
Are we going to do community comment now? I don't think so. We'll wait until after the presentation. It is 7:30, so I think we can begin. Our 7:30 appointment is Water Superintendent Dan Sullivan with a discussion of the water system and future goals.
Okay.
Can I just ask a quick question? Where were the trails you were talking about cleaning up and doing?
Laggy Preserve ones?
Yeah.
So those right across the street from the herring run.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so over there is a conservation or preserved area that has been being worked on. Yeah, so there are some trails over there now. You can still use them. It's just not complete yet, is all. Thank you. Dan, will you just introduce yourself for anybody who doesn't know who you are?
Good evening, I'm Dan Sullivan, Water Superintendent.
Those microphones on, I can't hear it.
They're only for people here at home.
For the
Come on
TV.
up a little closer, Leah.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
No.
Obviously, we've had previous meetings about infrastructure. We're here tonight just to kind of give you an update on where we're at, some of the progress we made on some of the capital projects that were approved for July. Not that any of them have started, but just where we're at with it. Just to give you a quick overview of our department, for a water supply, there's two areas, treatment, distribution. We have a primary treatment operator that oversees the daily operations of all of our pump stations and our source water, work foreman, oversee the field activities. Right now, that's kind of how the hierarchy is, but we are cross-trained employees, we have more coverage for the future. Our employees, they're responsible for 133 miles of water main, 3 water storage tanks, 4 groundwater wells, and an iron and manganese filtration plant, which 2 of the wells pump to currently. The other 2 sources are not filtered. They are just treated for pH, disinfected, and we add fluoride to the water. They have 1,000 fire hydrants to maintain. We have 6,400 services roughly. Everything we do, we have to report to Mass DEP and comply with regulation 310 CMR 22. In addition to the regulations with Mass DEP also issues us a water management act permit every year. That seems to be a hot topic, why we have water restrictions, why aren't we allowed irrigation. Part of our water management act permit, the state tells us when we can pump the water, how we can pump the water, how much we're allowed to, in order to maintain a safe yield of the source. So the groundwater underneath, they have basins, sub-basins, all the communities that draw from them. So the state regulates how much you can pump, so that way we can ensure that source is there in the future. As I mentioned, part of our permit says that we will continue to enforce our irrigation bylaw that we have in town, and that we will impose water restrictions every May through September, regardless of if it's raining or not. And historically, we've been in drought situations pretty much every year. I'm sure you guys all saw in the news, even last month, about 90% of the state was still in drought. I mean, we're in November at that point. So it's not uncommon. It's something all communities have to deal with. Certain communities have less restrictions for other reasons because of their permits when they were issued. Our permit does state we will have restrictions. A little history about the system. The town of Pembroke originally investigated building a public water supply back in 1931. That little piece of broken pipe in the middle, stamped 1927, was a piece of cast iron that we just removed from Rhineville Center. From what I can see, they didn't actually start laying main until about 1935, but that's when that T was constructed, coming from the Brockton water supply. That being said, so Pembroke started laying main in 1935. As you can see on the plaque on the far right, we didn't have our first pumping station until 1957. Up until that point, all the water was purchased from the city of Brockton. That was an agreement. They would supply the water, so that way the town of Pembroke didn't have too many capital costs all at once. At the same time as they built that pump station, they also constructed the High Street tank. This map is a proposed design for what they want to do, which will be relevant tonight. So back when the system was constructed, they used unlined cast iron pipe. Today's pipe has a cement lining or it's PVC, so that way it can resist corrosion from the water. But that red line shows the main essentially travel from Rhineville up Mattakesett Street onto Center Street, down to about Hobblebach, and then continuing up Washington Street. Back then, Washington Street wasn't a state road, so it actually goes down what would be called Old Washington Street. Things have changed. This isn't what they actually did. They originally proposed the tank being built on Congress Street, but they moved it over to High Street. So it appears they actually laid all the main on High Street and did not go up to Washington Street. That's one of the areas we have a lot of complaints which would have been one of the first mains installed on High Street.
This is 58.
Again, just going over types of water main, cast iron, early 1900s. Originally unlined. When they started realizing water quality issues, they began lining the pipe, and they started putting a cement line in. Around the 1930s, 40s, specifically around World War II, when all the North Carolina war effort, special cement pipe or transit pipe came out, and they began using that in water systems. Not all systems, but Pembroke did pretty extensively. Around the 50s, ductile iron came out, but it was still new, so Pembroke leaned towards AC or some cement line cast iron. About in the 70s or 80s, PVC came out, and we do have some of that in the system too, although our specs now specify ductile iron class 52. This is just a breakdown of what pipe materials we have in town. The majority is the AC pipe, like I said, that was popular. There's a lot of population growth in the 40s through 70s here, and that was the primary material used. Cast iron. This chart is from the 2016 master plan. Since 2016, we have replaced 27,000. We haven't replaced. We abandoned 27,000 feet of pipe. In areas where there were two mains, we transferred all the services over to the new main and abandoned it in place. It was more cost effective. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then you can see we have cast iron cement line, PVC, HDP, which is, I believe, what they used to shoot underneath the highway to get over to what was Christmas tree shop. That's why there's a small amount of that. They directional drilled that. PE, which is polyethylene plastic piping. There's some side streets that would have that, and the same with the copper tubing. That's real small. So some of the, like cottage areas, they might just have a small line that everybody's teed off with. Topic that keeps coming up: why do we flush our water mains? We flush them to remove sediment buildup in water pipes, remove biofilms, to prevent discoloration. We're also checking that the fire hydrants work, testing valves, all the stuff we've covered before. This is a picture of us flushing our system. The picture on your left is probably the darkest water we're going to see. That is loaded with manganese. The cup in the middle is a sample of that, but as you can see, it settles out. And that's what happens in the system. So the stations that have manganese, when we pump it, it settles in the pipes, and that's why we need to flush. If we don't flush, it continues to build up. It becomes a real issue. And then you can see during shutdown, the water will be clear, which means we remove all the sediment from the air. Again, just to reiterate, Mass DEP says this is a critical process. Every municipality does it. Everyone.
Just one point for everyone. Don't write down the URL. This presentation will be online tomorrow, so you can click on the URL and go and read the Mass DEP regulation.
So it is essential. There's a reason why hot water heaters, they recommend you flush your hot water heater, because sediment accumulates in it because municipal water supplies, pump groundwater, surface water, there are minerals, there's sediment, it's going to collect in the pipes. So you have to flush, otherwise it's going to build up to a point where, I guess kind of where we were at a few years ago, when we weren't able to flush. So the cause of the discolor water, it's the minerals and sediment, which are made up of iron and manganese primarily for us, in the unlined cast iron pipe. Those are the two focuses. We need to treat the source water, get rid of the unlined cast iron pipe. That's the bulk of our problem. So without dealing with those two issues, we're going to continue to see this discolored water. Again, so that sediment accumulates. Why does it get kicked up? That gets kicked up because of water main breaks, hydrant usage, construction, fires, all sorts of things. I mean, we've had contractors hook on the hydrants without our knowledge. That will kick the water up. We don't know specifically what people are doing until we get calls about dirty water. Same with fire protection systems in buildings. They do annual maintenance. If they don't call and notify us that they're doing the maintenance and do a flow test, that will kick up the water. This is a section of pipe we cut out of town. As you can see, there's pretty heavy accumulation on the inside. This is on my cast iron pipe. My note there, 6 + 6 doesn't equal 12. A lot of people think, oh, we have 1 6-inch pipe, just put another 6 in, and we just as good as a 12-inch pipe to save money. As you can see, when you come down to pipe volumes, a 6-inch pipe only holds 1.46 gallons per foot. 12-inch pipe holds 5.8. So when we get into our flushing, and we talk about velocities, those figures are very important. So as you can see, that 8-inch pipe, that's an inch and a half buildup. That's really only like a 5-inch pipe now. So now our capacity is cut down significantly from 2.6 to 1 gallon per foot, which means also that if there's a increase in flow in the system, that the normal 391 gallons a minute that would take to kick up sediment is reduced down to 150 gallons. So because of that reduction, it takes a lot less water to kick up the sediment in the bottom. This is another section of pipe we cut out over on Taylor Street. Don't mind the cobwebs that was sitting in the scrap pile for 2 weeks before I took that picture. Manganese. Manganese is a mineral that's naturally occurring in the water. It's very prevalent. All the systems around here have it in their water. But it all depends on how much manganese that you have. That's kind of what dictates whether you had a put treatment on or you had it. Signs of manganese are obviously discolored water. Once it accumulates in the bottom of the pipes, gets stirred up and into the homes. Mass DEP, they have a secondary contaminant level for manganese. It's 0.05 milligrams per liter. That's pretty low. They say if you go over that, you are likely to have aesthetic problems, discolored water, taste, odor. We are currently at station 2, well above that. However, that's just a recommendation. Mass DEP says that it's not a concern health-wise until you're above the 0.3. So that's why typically towns, if it wasn't a threat to public health, they didn't treat for it. This is going back to 1989. After 1986, they came with the Safe Drinking Water Act. So all municipalities had to evaluate their corrosion control. And during a study, I found the same results. Back in '89 at Station 2, the iron levels were 0.1 and manganese was 0.06. Today, I forget, that's November. The iron has now doubled, and the manganese has times 4. So as you can see, as you pump millions of gallons of water, you're drawing these minerals into the well. That's why we have to clean them regularly, and you get into situations like this. But that being said, like I said, we're still below the 0.3 level that DEP says is a health concern. This is a letter from Mass DEP back in 2014 stating that we recognize that you're over the 0.05, but you're below the 0.2 level consistently. So they gave the town a waiver, and we did not have to sample for 9 years, which would have been recently. Just to go over some brief capital history, this is going back, Angela up in Bill's office did some digging. These are all the capital improvements since 2004, I believe.
That's correct.
I would categorize them, while I wasn't here, most of them are like mainly maintenance things. There are some great things the town did do. They did a lot of water main work off of Wampatuck Street. They bought land for Edgewood Bog, Swanberg property, Mattakesett Street, and Amberg property, which were all great tools for us now to develop new water supplies. And you can see the total capital back then was about $10 million over from 2004 to 2016. Around the town.
Can I just point something out?
Sure.
The pass on the right is at town meeting.
Yes.
The ones that did not pass were not.
I apologize. So yes, I did have a note. So back in 2013, right after the other Wampatuck Street improvements, the town did vote down all capital improvements in 2013. It kind of was like a hold. They thought the million investor, whatever it was too much. So the project off of like Bonnie, Old Colony neighborhood, came in at about 1.4. It had drainage improvements and stuff like that. That was voted down along with any other improvement.
Can you tell us what that would cost today?
So ballpark around 5 million. So we went from 1.4 to 5 million over 10 years.
So we made a choice back then to vote down $1.4 million in projects that are now gonna cost us well over $5 million to do that we have to do.
And the areas where it doesn't say pass, those are recommended by the water department, infrastructure upgrades that we needed that were never done.
No, I'm sorry, Rich. So I think she just put pass. So like it says pass, and then everything under that was all at the same time. Everything up there was approved.
It's under the same town
It's
meeting.
part of it.
Yeah, it's under the same
Yeah,
town.
and-
Yeah, correct.
And these are only the items that actually made it to town meeting. At that
I did leave
time-
off. I didn't put like vehicles on, like the small stuff
Right.
that weren't improvements to the system.
During the same time frame, the water commissioners did not put forward recommendations from the water department because they wanted to keep the rates very, very low. So there were a number of items that don't show up here that never made it to town meeting for a vote.
Did you have how long was it before they raised rates? It was
10 years.
10 years,
10
yeah,
years.
yeah, good.
Correct.
Yep. So they want to keep rates flat, and they kept rates flat for 10 years, which restricted the amount of capital projects the town of Pembroke could do. And unfortunately, it put us in arrears on our capital projects that we now, Dan and I are not gonna, I mean, as town manager, I am gonna bring these to town meeting and
Oh, absolutely.
so that we can continue to improve our water system.
And I'll say this was kind of like a mentality everywhere. All communities around here keep water rates low. That's what it was all about. Keep the rates low. Not a tremendous amount of infrastructure investments in the area. I remember Plymouth County Waterworks, American Waterworks, New England Waterworks. This is a common theme. It's not just Pembroke.
So the eggs are hatching and they're coming home to roost.
Yes, yes. And I mean, you'll see it. You see it in the news everywhere, unfortunately. And it's the topic of conversation we all have when we go to different seminars and everything. It's something that's impacting everybody this day and age. So like I said, over the course of that period, about 10 million investments. Around when the town decided to change the hierarchy and go to town manager, we started seeing some improvements. They gave more trust to the department heads. Gene had a lot of projects waiting to go, and he jumped right into them. Like I said, over this period of time, 27,000 feet of online cast iron pipe was abandoned in place. And the reason he focused on those was that the new main was already in place. Not that it was new at that point. Some was put in 95, some in 85. But the cost was a lot less just to transfer services. Now that the easy work's done, now we're doing actual replacements of water main. So you can see in that brief period since Bill's been here, 15 million's been invested into the system. They also did extensive upgrades at the water treatment plant. We swapped from green sand to green sand plus, removed potassium permanganate from the system. We're allowed to flow higher rates, even though the well floor is underperforming right now. But we did request funds to install a replacement well there to get that max capacity.
And I'm going to apologize for not giving you a heads up of all these questions, but I think it's important that folks understand. When you go from green sand to green sand plus, one of the major advantages to that is that you can eliminate certain chemicals in the system. Can you talk about that a little bit? We're not adding chemicals to take the manganese out of the system. We're actually using a filtration system with green sand plus. So, sorry, Dan.
Yeah, so the one minor change was potassium permanganate was originally used. Some people are a little scared of it. I mean, chemicals full strength are hazardous, obviously. We dilute them in very, very small amounts. It's all regulated, it's all monitored. But that was a big thing, getting away from the potassium permanganate. Now we just use sodium hypochlorite to oxidize the iron and manganese. It recharges the media. The process is a lot cleaner, neater, less maintenance for the guys. and the media is supposed to last longer. So it was a good investment for the town.
And we're not using potassium permanganate in our system today, is that correct?
Yes, since 2002, we haven't.
Okay.
Like I said, a couple of projects here, luckily, they were able to tie those into the TIPS projects, the roadway projects that the state was doing. You can see the Route 36 water lines, the Route 14 water system improvements. Currently on our capital plan, I didn't realize this was going to be so small. It looks bigger on my computer screen. Right now, we have a lot on our plate. I told Bill we're budgeting $8 million roughly a year for water main replacements between engineering just to get the ball rolling on projects. Our goal is to get rid of obviously all the inline cast iron pipe. That's our main focus. I estimate we have about 11 miles remaining. So we're pushing pretty hard to get through it. I'm waiting for the master plan to be completed before we really dial in on the next area. Just because of sizing, we want to evaluate a lot of things to make sure we do it right for the next, so we don't have to worry about it for the next 100 years. Also on here, like I said, we're doing a replacement well 4. The well driller should be here just after the first of the year to begin that process. We're doing a replacement well, so the permitting process is a little bit more straightforward. We're hoping to re-achieve the 1 million gallons a day that we can pump from, that well 4 is originally permitted for. Right now, we can only pump about half of that. That well was put in, I believe, 86. Really wasn't utilized until 1990, but it's declined greatly, and the cleanings just don't seem to bring it back. So replacement was recommended. With that being said, we are hoping to possibly permit for more because of all these capital projects. We've been looking at other ways to increase our capacity. So Station 1 went offline in about 2009, I believe. They said that well was permitted for $500,000 a day. So we're seeing if the state will kind of let us transfer that permit over to well 4, since it appears preliminary that it can pump more. So we're trying to find other ways to push off other projects that we've been looking at, such as the Elmer Street property, which would be pretty expensive. We also have on there, yeah, mainly just focusing on the water main. We got to get the water, the inline cast iron out. We got 19 million for this upcoming spring. That's just a placeholder. They're revising the numbers right now. That's for the treatment plant for stations 2 and 3. As I stated, the manganese levels over the years have creeped up. At Station 2 specifically, 3 is not too bad, it's borderline. I figured if we're going to put a plant between 2 buildings, might as well treat it. Right now we have a grant application in, which hopefully we'll hear about in the next couple of weeks through the state revolving fund. Hopefully get some loan forgiveness, low interest loan. And that will greatly improve the system. As I showed you in that cup, all that sediment, that was manganese, black. That's what manganese is. So if we don't put it in the pipes, it can't get kicked up. Quick update on some of the projects we have going on. The water master plan. Signed the contracts in October. It officially began November 1st. I think it was around November 15th, 16th. We were out doing fire flow tests, 2 days of fire flow testing. Just some preliminary work so that way the engineers can start working. We're going to meet after the first of the year to start reviewing some of the information I've been collecting over the past year. I've been going through old files, just combing through them, making sure we're not missing any of the online cast. There seems to be bits and pieces here and there, just based on how the system is built. You know, a few homes came up the road, so they extended the main, and that pipe material, there's a mix. Some roads have 3 different pipe materials on it. We're trying to sort through all that, find out where those nuisance areas are. So the plan is we're going to try and spell the next 20 years of capital improvements needs, water storage needs, water main needs, increasing pipe sizes, future treatment needs if needed. We'll evaluate that. We hope to have that report completed in October of 2025. And I did ask them to come in with a presentation and do that for you guys, go over everything. Also, we have part of those capital improvements Currently, High Street, we have, we'll be going out to bid briefly. Oldham Street, West Elm, Dwelly, a portion of it. Those are all the streets we're working on now. They've been confirmed to have unlined cast iron pipe. They have low C values. So the pipe on the right is a brand new pipe. It has a C value of smoothness of 140. When the engineers have gone out there to do testing, the pipe on the left would have a value of maybe 50, 35, which indicates, that's just a calculation they do. Based off of how much flow and the pressure drop we see, they can estimate how corroded the pipe is. So we've, like I said, through the flushing program, all that data we're bringing back, giving it to the engineers, they're evaluating it, and we're targeting those areas first that have fire flow deficiencies. Not that it's critical, but you can see that it's been trending down over the years. So we're trying to get ahead of it before it is a real issue. High Street schedule, I met with the engineer the other day. We're gonna meet mid-January to go over the 50% designs. They're hoping to get in front of Concom, I believe in February, to keep things moving. And with, if everything stays on schedule, we plan on starting mid-April, and that job will go the majority of the construction season right to fall. The good thing about that is new main, new services from our main to the curb stop, the homeowner side, fire hydrants. It really, just doing everything sets the department up for the next 50 years of not having any worries about leaks, breaks, things like that, because everything's new. There are other methods that are out there. There's relining, but we're already at about 100 years old. Disturbing the main, chances are you're gonna end up with run cracks down the road. The services all will get replaced. That seems to be where most of our leaks are on water services. So if we eliminate all of our liability from the town side, we'll be better off long term. Swanberg Pump Station, that's been in the works for a while. We will be going out to bid and hopefully having bid openings mid-February and get the ball rolling on that. That pump station will be built up off of Pleasant Street on the Swanberg property. It's like 258, 256, or something like that, acres. That's been permitted for about, I think, 350,000 gallons a day. Once that's online, that'll greatly decrease our dependency on the dirty water sources until we get filtration there. So as we redevelop well 4, get Swanberg property online, which will take a year and a half, we'll be able to decrease our dependency on these other sources until the treatment plant's completed. Going back to well 4 replacement, the picture on the left, that's pipe shaft and the spider bearings that keep the shaft aligned. You can see there's about a 1/4 inch of iron buildup on that. So that's the water we're taking and making into clean water. I just took some numbers that the guys daily take. You can see the iron levels are about around the 2 part per million. So that's 10 times dirtier than well 2. That's why we have a treatment plant there. If you pump this out, that's what everybody's water will look like all day, every day. The far right is our filtration plant that the guys currently maintain. There's actually 6 vessels. There's another set of bank of vessels on the other side. They keep it in great shape. It runs well. As you can see, we take out virtually all the iron and manganese. There's a little bit that gets through, but that's normal for any system. It's trace amounts, and that's why you would continue to flush. That's why the state says every system needs a flush. You're never going to get it all. I guess unless you had a reverse osmosis, but it's extremely expensive.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And nobody has them. Very few people are using them.
Yeah. So station 2 and 3, we are also beginning of the year. We have a pilot study beginning. So what they're going to do, this is a picture of the inside of the trailer. Those are 4 separate vessels, and they try out 4 different medium types. We know we're leaning towards green sand because that's what we have. That's what the guys are familiar with. That's our best option. But the state requires you to test it out. So we're going to do a 2-week test, treating the water at Station 2 to see which medium performs best. And then they can look at the costs and see what would be the best option for us. But that'll be a 2-week test at each station. They'll bring that in. the company's operator will come in and monitor it. They look for all sorts of variables. This is the preliminary schedule for 2 and 3 construction. Because we are applying for that grant, there's a pretty strict timeline. So, like I said, at Springtown meeting, we will be requesting the funds. The grant requires us that the town approves the funds before we can proceed with anything. If that all goes well, we'll start construction in 2026. I made it clear to the engineers, grant or not, we're starting on schedule, so we're sticking with schedule. So, grant or no grant, we will be building that facility. It's crucial to the overall operation. That well 2 can pump 1 million gallons a day. Right now, it's greatly underutilized because of the dirty water. So we recognize that it's an issue, so we pump it as little as we can, but it still has to be used for us to meet our day demand, get the proper turnover in the storage facilities. Water age can be an issue. We don't want the water too long, being in the system too long, cause other problems, bacteria issues, biofilm growth in the system. So there's a lot of factors. It's not just turn it off. There's permitting issues. Like I said, well 5 has a restriction on how much we can pump. We can only pump 500,000 a day there, average. So if we're not using 2, that means I can't pump it heavily in the summer when we need it. So right now, say we're banking essentially like credits. So I'm pumping about 400,000 gallons a day at Station 5 every day. So that means in the summer we can pump 600,000 gallons a day. These are all things that the state follows up on us, and as licensed operators, we have to adhere to. Excuse me. This is the proposed site plan for Stations 2 and 3 treatment plant right now. It's located off between School and Center Street, in between the 2 stations. They're still up in the air with it. They're trying to find the best location so that way we can utilize the terrain's pretty hilly, so that way we don't have to have pumps to the dewatering lagoons. They're trying to use gravity, so that this is, I think, the 3rd option that they've been looking at. So they're trying to find the most cost-effective location for the site in that area. That being said, Station 3 at some point, because that well's declined over the years, we will probably be looking at doing a replacement well for there. We gotta talk to DEP about that. There's a lot of criteria that goes into a well. You don't just punch a well. There's a lot of testing that has to be done. You have to own your zone 1. As you can see, the well's currently technically non-compliant because there's houses inside that zone 1, the roadways in that zone 1. So if we did a replacement, we have to find a spot that is conforming before DEP will approve it. So while there's water there, we can't just take it. The state's very strict on their rules and regulations for good reason, to protect the public health. That's about it.
Thank you, Dan. Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments for Dan?
Dan, the new water tank that's going in, how will that benefit us?
So we definitely have a deficiency capacity. Obviously, like I said, High Street tank, that's been offline for a number of years. There was a bacteria issue down the road. So that was never replaced. And since that time, clearly, there's been significant building up in the Oak Street area. So that's where we're looking to put the new tank. On a daily monitoring our system, we have a SCADA system. You can see hydraulically that operates 68 feet lower hydraulically than the rest of the system. So there's a lot of demand up there. The more flow there is, the pressures drop. So you either have flow or pressure. Flows increase, pressure drops. Pressure increases, flows drop. So that is something after the master plan. We did approve a new tank. We kind of put the brakes on it until we finished the master plan, just to really evaluate everything that's going on up there. I know we've had talk about 80 units, which would create demand, more people living up there. The MBTA housing was at 700 units potentially if somebody found the space. So because there was a potential so much more demand up there, we wanted to kind of really make sure we're making the right decision on sizing that tank. And again, there's a lot of factors. It's not just bigger is better. Bigger isn't always better, so with, like I said, water age, we want to make sure we're turning that water over every day, and, well, not every day, 3 to 5 days, we're trying to turn the water over in the tank. If you have too much storage, the water ages and is at risk for contamination. So there's a lot of factors that go into that.
So we started recording issues with discolored water recently after the last flush. Did we learn anything new?
So there hasn't been as many reports as I was expecting. I know people are still on Facebook and stuff. Obviously, unfortunately, I think it was made, the announcement was made just before we did the fire flow test, the 27 fire flow test, which was inevitably going to cause discolored water. That's why we posted it. That was, I've got to say 90% of the responses were from those 2 days. Other than that, it's kind of teetered off. We get some here and there. We do want you, please fill out that form. Our office will reach out to you because we want to evaluate. Sometimes it is just build up in your service line. So we're flushing out water mains, your service line's not necessarily getting flushed. If you have low flow in your house, I mean, everybody has low flow fixtures, that sediment's accumulating and maybe you just happen to run multiple appliances and it kicks it up. So we'll come out, we'll drop the meter, flush it out and evaluate, is there something more that we can do? If I'm getting numerous calls from a street all at once, we'll send somebody out, we'll run a hydrant nice and easy, get that discolored water out. Anything we can do to keep it from getting in the house, we will do.
I heard you guys were very successful with some of the service line blowouts.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You were very successful in blowing some of those lines out, the service lines.
Yeah, no, it definitely works. There's a scale that builds up over time. Most houses have pressure reducing valves that restrict the flow, so the service might not always see the flow that's required to pull that debris out.
Is that required, those?
No, that's not something that you normally do. If
No,
we
at
don't
one time was it required?
to do a homeowner service,
No, the reduction.
pressure reducing valves, so that's kind of like, that's mainly a plumbing code. There's some systems that require it, but it mainly falls under the plumbing code. They don't recommend more than 80 PSI on a fixture. Excessive wear on the solenoids on your wash machine, dishwashers, the valves in your faucets. So they recommend that because the designers of the appliances, they have specifications. So they
Yeah.
say it's going to shorten the lifespan of your appliances if you don't have pressure.
I put one in my house because the pressure was too high.
Yeah,
And
there's some areas where.
huge water hammer every time the wash machine shut off.
Yeah,
In your neighborhood, for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely an issue. That's why typically it's up to, obviously if you only have 40 PSI in the house, we don't want you to put a pressure reducing valve in, it's just going to restrict things. We get a lot of no water calls because of them. They do fail eventually. They do have a lifespan. When they fail shut. So you get no water in your house.
And that's a plumbing issue, if it's past the meter, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, we're responsible for the meter, and valve.
Thank you, you answered a lot of my questions with this presentation. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, no, I definitely look forward to downloading the presentation, and obviously everybody should download the presentation. A number of questions that I have. So, obviously we have all that information there. In a nutshell, can we just say two primary causes that we have? Very old pipes, some of which are up to 80 or 100 years old, that are still in the system.
Yep.
A. And then B, the other side, the other primary cause is old well that pumps water that carries more manganese primarily, and that's the issue, is manganese. The iron is from the old pipes, the manganese is from the older well, correct?
Yeah, so there is some iron at well 2, but they say iron does cause discoloration, so you hit a 0.3. It's only a 0.2 there, but it's going to accumulate, so that's going to add to the sediment. That's going to mix it in the pipes, and it's going to fill up the bottom of the pipe. So just like in that cup, it's all going to settle and it starts filling up in the bottom of the pipe. So eventually it's going to get to a point where normal flows are going to be too much. It's going to start peeling up that sediment.
And so in that nutshell, we have old pipes need to be replaced.
Yes.
Old well needs to be replaced. The old well, we are replacing in 2026. That's the Swanberg.
So Swanberg's going to be a different source. The old well 4, which is decreasing yield, We're drilling that well hopefully in the next couple months. But then there's a permitting process, and then we gotta apply to have it tied into the building. So that's gonna, with the water system, there's a lot of variables. I mean, you can't do one thing and it doesn't have a chain effect of 6 other things.
Sure.
So we need to increase what we can pump, and that's for water quality, firefighting, water age, turning it over. And then we also need to treat that well 2. And we're also gonna treat well 3 because that's borderline that MCL.
And this is all the treated wells or replaced wells all over the course of the next few years?
Yes, yes.
So next few years, that's happening.
Yeah, we're pushing hard on it.
The pipes we're replacing as well. You mentioned we were spending about, this is for everything, all the infrastructure improvements, about $8 million a year?
For online cast iron pipe.
For the mains only.
For the mains only, okay, that's right, because I saw 75 million at the bottom. That, the total dollars are like 12 million a year. But until 2030, it said 75 million.
Well, I think like next year's 30 million.
Okay.
But that's requesting the funds for stations 2 and 3. You just have to commit to it, and then we're gonna borrow it appropriately to kind of space over the next couple of years of construction. So it won't be borrowed all up front. I'll let
And Bill, you'll speak to that a little bit, and you'll speak to that as well? How we're gonna structure that? 'Cause
Yeah,
obviously we
so
can't take that
obviously,
hit.
we'll be meeting with our financial advisors and the treasure collector, and we're not gonna do all the work at once, so you don't wanna borrow all the money at once. You wanna borrow the money incrementally. And we may, depending upon where interest rates are, we may even do what we're doing with the public safety building, and we may ban it, bond anticipation note, because the interest rates are more favorable to do that at this point, and then do a permanent borrowing at the end of the construction phase. That's all based on where the market goes for borrowing and you know, what the financial advisors are advising us to do. We're certainly going to take a look and find the least expensive method of completing that, so that we can timely fund the projects and the construction, and not, I'll just say it, not whack the ratepayers with undue costs for money that we don't need to spend immediately.
Okay.
Steve, can I just jump into your conversation for 1 second as an important point of information for the public? That the water department gets its money through an enterprise fund, through your water fees. This is, when you go to town meeting and you vote the general budget, you're not voting through the tax levy for these water projects. These water projects have a specific fund. Your water fees that we all know that we pay, that's the only place that these monies can come from. Maybe some mixed trucks here and there, but the water system is only through this water enterprise fund. It does not come out of general taxes or taxation, and that's important to know. And that's why we highlighted that the water rates were not raised for 10 years. So if that's the only funding source and it stays stable for 10 years, you don't have a lot of money for infrastructure. So just an important point to that.
I agree with you, Steve. My main focus tonight was to point out, if we don't put sediment in the system, there's nothing to get stirred up. I mean, there'll always be a little, but not to the extent that we're at. So that's our main focus. We need to get to a place where we're not relying on those sources until they can be treated. And like I said, once 2 is treated, that is one of the best wells in town. They pump all day. Unfortunately, we can't utilize to that capacity because the water would be cloudy all over town at that point. Instead of you having clear water, it gets picked up, it's discolored, you run it, it clears.
So it is one of the best wells in town for water production,
Yes.
but the worst for iron and manganese. So it's terrific where we can pump millions of gallons of water on an annual basis, but until we have the filtration to make sure we're taking the iron and manganese out, if we do that, as Dan just said, we're just pumping that into our system. So.
Another question. So the pipe enhancements, replacements, et cetera, are those pure, just the pipes are being replaced, or are we also using the cure-in-place method that you can do with piping? I know New York City does that.
They have a lot of methods.
Can you talk a little bit, because we actually studied that, Steve, and we actually did a cost-benefit analysis, and for our pipes, because of their age and everything else, the benefit is not to, you're talking about lining the pipes. I've done hundreds, maybe thousands of miles of pipelining over the years. It doesn't make sense here because our cost-benefit study said our pipes are just too old
They're just too
to
old.
line. Yeah, and I'll let Dan.
So the other variable there is, so absolutely in the cities, a lot of times it makes sense because you have so much infrastructure. So if I'm in the city, I'm getting 20 feet of pipe laid a day, it's better off to line it here and let the contractors know, I expect 300 feet a day of pipe to be laid. So the cost is a lot less if you're getting 300 feet a day versus 20, 40 feet a day, because in the city you're, gas mains, duct banks, everything else. The progress of the project is a lot slower. It's a lot more difficult. Even setting up trenching, shoring around all that, it's very time consuming. So typically in a very urban environment with a lot of other utilities, that would be best practice. Like Bill said, it was about a year ago, we asked our consultant to run the numbers, and it was only like a $300,000 savings on the $5 million job on High Street.
So you might as well just replace the pipe entirely.
If you're
New
lining
pipe.
100-year-old pipe and for $300,000, you can do brand-new pipes down all your city. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
From
so
a
new
business
pipe, new
standpoint.
services, new hydrants.
And it's because, a big part of that too is because our pipe is just so old that supposedly this lining will add like another 50 years of life to your pipe.
Yes, so
But
a lot of people were keen on that in like the 90s. There was a big rush because at that point the pipe was only 50 years old. So I'm adding another 50 years. I'm not replacing it. Now we're coming up on 100 years. So if we do it, our service is still old, the hydrants, valves. There is still some excavation that can usually only go 500 feet at a whack. The time of it is just as long because they have to let the concrete cure, or they do have slip lining. There's multiple methods.
so it's the amount of pipe that we're replacing. That's a big part of it that we're doing at once, as opposed to smaller sections where it's easier and makes more sense to do it, and the new pipe too.
Our cost to replace pipe per square foot or per mile is so much less than in the cities because of the labor requirements in the cities. So it changes that cost-benefit calculation to line the pipes in the cities because it's cheaper. We're doing so much pipe here that cost-benefit, it's cheap, it's better for us to put in new pipe.
And what about the infrastructure disruption, like the time that it would take as well, even apart from the hard costs?
It varies.
I don't think it's that much less because, so you're digging down, you have to do bypass piping because you're taking the pipe out of service, right? So now you have to run a temporary main above ground, feed all the homes. You're going to shut down that section wherever you have gate valves. So it might be far greater than the 500 feet that you can clean at that one time. They're going to dig a trench on either side. They're going to pull pigs through and then wire brush until it's bare, shiny metal. Then they'll either cement line it or pull a sleeve through and inflate it. They have to let it cure. Then you have to button everything back up, disinfect it, sample it. You're still looking at like a week for each section of pipe. So the idea, it's great. And like I said, there's a place for it. I don't think, well, based
So
on
you guys
what we
looked
saw.
at it, this was...
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
about a year
we did
ago
a cost-benefit analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, before we put it on the plan, we looked at that.
And a couple more questions. Who are you guys working with to develop the water master plan? I know there was some discussion, like there was a few companies to look at, or entities rather.
We're using a consultant, yeah.
Yeah, so right now, Environmental Partners was bought by Apex Companies. That's who we're using. They did the 2016 master plan. They've been involved with a lot of our projects, so they know a lot of the history of the system.
You said they're Environmental Partners, that's the
Well,
name of the...
it's Apex. It's owned by
Apex.
Apex.
Yeah, Apex just bought them. They're changing their brand. But they've been involved with a lot of the projects since 2016. All those projects that you've seen, they've been involved in most of them.
Okay. And final question that I have, I'm sure, looking at the presentation, people saw asbestos pipe. Can you speak to the safety of that pipe?
So asbestos, we have to take training courses on it. It's only hazardous to you in dry form. That's when you can ingest it, inhale it, and get it in your lungs. We are required to sample for asbestos fibers in the pipe, which would indicate that's deteriorating. We currently have a waiver, so it was never an issue. We will be sampling for it in the next coming years. But if there was any issue, it would show up in a sample. And at that point, we'd be looking to replace the pipe. In the meantime, mitigation would be regularly flushing it so that way the fibers wouldn't accumulate. But it's been in systems for, obviously, since the 40s. In the wet form, it's not hazardous. That's why when you see people working with it, they have to wear face masks and everything because it's dry, there's dust, the fibers are flying around.
Thank you.
The biggest issue with asbestos pipe is, once it starts to fail, it starts to fail, and we have a substantial amount that would be very costly over a short period of time if it starts to fail. So we need to continue with our master plan, continue to get our pipe replaced and work through that, so.
So replacing that as well? Or
Oh,
not just
yes,
replacing the
absolutely.
iron pipe?
We're gonna roll into that. Right now, it's deal with the discolored water, get rid of the online cast. In the 20-year plan, obviously, we're gonna evaluate what we've spent, what we are spending, and hopefully some of that debt can start falling off, and then we'll start rolling into that. Hopefully be able to kind of maintain the rates while doing those projects. But that's why we're going on 20 years to evaluate all that and see how it fits in, to do, kind of figure the best way for the town overall.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
The master plan is supposed to span 20 years, is that what you said?
We're gonna plan on 20 years of projects. Obviously, things will come up, things change. The state and federal government are always changing regulations. We're constantly sampling new things that they find are hazardous in other communities, other parts of the country. So this won't be the last time we have to deal with something. They really actually didn't start testing for manganese until like the early 2000s when they started studying it in drinking water. Before that, it was, the water's safe bacterial, like you're not going to get sick from it. That's why communities have manganese in their water. I've dealt with multiple. This isn't just a Pembroke thing.
I'll actually follow up to that. So if the water master plan, there's going to be projects over the course of the next 20 years, I'm sure the big question on people's mind is, okay, when will my water stop being so discolored all the time, especially in these areas where we have the biggest problems? Do we have a rough idea over the course of the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, where the vast majority of those people who are experiencing that, and I know it's especially in isolated areas, but
Like I said, we're going to be hitting the water main replacements pretty hard. We have a lot of those already spelled out. I'm hoping most of those areas with the online cast in the next 3 years. Obviously, that plant will tentatively is online in 2028. Like I said, once we get Swanberg on next year, I plan on only utilizing well 2 when we need it during the summer months. So hopefully, 5 months out of the year it's off. We'll just use it in the summer when we need it to meet demands.
And that will also give us a well further to the northeast where our predominant amount of use is, so it's going to create less turbulation in the water system and functioning. Replacing the High Street water main will be a major improvement because that tank is offline, so the water is flowing and it's constantly mixing that water up. So I suspect, within the next 2 to 3, within the next year for some neighborhoods, and then 2 to 3 years after that will be a significant improvement.
Like I said, continue, let us know, because if the sediment's gotten that kicked up, we don't want you to take it in your house. We're being proactive. We'll come out there, we'll run the hydrants, we'll try to take it out. During the fire flow test, I told the guys, if it's dirty when you shut it down, let me know. We send another guy out, he'd hook on that hydrant and run until it was clear. So whatever we can do to minimize the inconvenience, we will.
That's the biggest impact. If you want to post on social media, please do, but we're not reading social media to find out where we're having a problem. Fill out that form so that we can address the problems. Go on the town's website, fill out the form so that we can look at that and let us fix it.
And after hours emergencies, please call the police station, they will contact us.
And note the time and date of the discoloration.
Well,
Yes.
Right,
Yeah, that's all.
We've added that to the form so that we'll now collect that information.
The more information we have, the better off we are, because if we can time it up to, the pump started, or maybe there's a power fail and the pump's shut off suddenly. We had a fuse blow at the pump station and all the valves shut off to the filters. Things happen. I mean, it's inevitable. No matter what, every system has equipment failures, breaks. It's going to happen. So if we can kind of find the reason, which is kind of drives me crazy when everyone's like, well, why was it discolored today? Let's just not put the dirty water out there, and then we don't have to worry about it.
And this master plan is supposed to be completed in October 25?
Correct. Yep. That's what our contract stated. So I know we got the funds in July. Them fitting into their schedule, they were realistic. They said we can't complete this until October. But I did ask them to come in and do a presentation for you all. Something we can post on the website, all that.
While you're in the process, or once it's complete?
once it's complete. There's a lot of data collection, like I said, we gotta go through old files, they gotta match everything up. There'll be a history of the system, the declines of the wells, a lot of boring material, but then the capital plan will, you know, that's what we're looking for.
I think though, as it develops, and as we gather more data, as people continue to use the report ideally, we should have regular updates leading up to the master plan release as well.
I don't think it's like the town master plan where you guys had like community input. This
I'm not
is like-
suggesting that, but I do think it would be a good idea for the people to hear at the updates, hey, we're progressing, here's where we are with the master plan, here's what's remaining. Regular updates, give people an opportunity to give a little bit more, ask some more questions if they want as well. It's an important project, people care about it, people care about the master plan, they care about the water, of course, we all do. But those regular updates, I think, are important. Not suggesting that it's gonna be like the master plan we had there, that's not what I'm suggesting. I think we have experts who are hired to do this, and we should do it productively, and I'm glad that we're doing it that way. But the regular updates will be, I think, very helpful for the community.
Yeah, I'll mention to them if we can kind of have milestones or something.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, yeah.
So the last master plan was 2015?
Yeah, 2016 was the completion date.
So about
2015.
a master plan once every 10 years or so. So if you're looking out, rough numbers, I mean, these are not
Yeah. Yep.
set in stone, but, so if this master plan is looking out 20 years, in another 10 years, you have another master plan that leapfrogs that one, because
Yeah.
the systems change, the technology changes, the population changes, the uses change. So, and that's part of, was the 2015 one a success or a failure? Well, it was probably a success if everything stayed in a vacuum in 2015, but things changed along the way.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, the well water quality declines, yields decline, there's a lot of variables.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments for Dan?
One last thing. There's one pipe you did not mention, and I'm glad you didn't, lead.
Oh, yes, the letters.
We don't have any. We have service lines, maybe.
I want him to have the answer. I just set a T-ball up for him to hit out of the park.
So main-wise, we do not have any lead. The lead service line letter that was sent out, that was federally mandated. This is the first step of the process. So since 1986, the Safe Drinking Water Act, they said you cannot use lead materials, pipes in the systems, lead solder in household plumbing. After Flint, Michigan, they said maybe we should just get it out so that way there can never be an issue. So the letters people received was the first step. We had to do an inventory to see if we had records of people's specific pipe material. If we didn't have the record on our card, we had to send you a letter, please complete the self-assessment or we'll come out and verify the material. Since 1954 was the oldest rules and regulation document I could find, and since then, it's stated that you must use copper. So we're pretty confident that everybody's copper, except maybe some School Street that used to be fed off of Brockton. Those might be galvanized lines. But we have to complete that inventory, and then the federal government will tell us, are they gonna require you to replace certain things? From speaking with the DPW director, he's never come across lead in the town. So I'm pretty confident we're not gonna run into it, but you never know. That's why we're completing it. Unless we knew for sure and we come out and verify, I can't document that it's copper. So that's why you got the letter, because we have to play by the rules, and if I didn't have an official record, we need to come out and verify it.
And once again, no water mains are lead. If
No
anything,
lead
it's a
mains.
service from the water main into your house.
Yes.
It's left over.
So even if you had a lead service line, we adjust the pH of the water. So lead's gonna leach in with corrosive water, it's gonna eat at the lead, and that's how it gets in the water. When we do the lead and copper samples, I think most of them are up at Packet Landing, because that was, they have different tiers when you do those lead and copper samples for where you're supposed to sample. We require, part of the sample process, you cannot run the water for 6 hours, and we want a first draw to see, all right, the water's been sitting there, did anything get in? Other than that, we've had no issues with it. So,
Hey, one last thing, as you're going through the master plan, maybe Bill could take a note for you, or maybe you know already. There was a time when some of the water mains ran down, whether it was a dead-end street, or even if two streets met, they each dead-ended, and there'd be a blowout at the end of it. And we've had a program to make it loop, because, think about it, if water stops at that end and just stays there stagnant, it creates havoc. So there's a blowout for it, or maybe there's a hydrant at the end of the line. But every one of those was supposed to be identified and looped back into the system, so we have no dead ends in all circuits. Do you know if that's complete?
I wouldn't say that, so there are some areas that have dead ends that we would like to put hydrants at the end of them. Looping it is best practice. Sometimes it's not always practical cost-wise and everything. So if you got into a routine of just flushing the end of the line, you'd be fine. Well, most of the time when you need to flush it, it's because a customer complains. If the customer's complaining and it smells musty or something like that, there's probably not enough water being used. But if you live in a development, there's a lot of houses, they're going to use that water. It's never actually going to get stagnant. As of now, though, we do require looping for most projects, depending on the situation. Like you said, the engineers will evaluate how many homes are there, are they going to use that water on a regular basis? Or, if there was two houses at the end of a 1,000-foot street, obviously they're not going to use that much water. That would be a situation where we'd want it looped. Or, obviously, hydrants should be placed at the end of the road.
Yeah, if that's completion of the program, the last few holdouts for whatever the reason is, put a hydrant at the end, because the blowouts, I don't know if anyone's ever seen them, it's just a little thing in the ground. It looks like this iron sprinkler head almost.
Yeah.
And you'd never know it was there, and when the guys are out flushing, they might not go to the end of that blowout. A young guy might not know it's there.
Yeah, so no, we do have, there's a couple, like Mira Mesa, I think the end of that road, Greenwood. There's a couple of streets that we do want to install hydrants. I didn't want to rush into it because I want to see where they were going to fit in, if they were going to be being replaced in the near future. There was no sense in us installing a hydrant right now.
Yeah.
We're still evaluating that. That'll be part of the master plan.
Yeah, well,
Not
for
a
now,
big-
as long
not
as
a
you
big
blow
piece.
them out.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, we need to, for sure.
Does anybody have anything else? Does anybody have any community comment regarding Dan's presentation? Come on up, please. Hi, could you just identify yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, my name's Kaisa Nasinski. I live on Mountain Ash Lane. I actually grew up here in Pembroke. I graduated high school here, and in 2011, I actually moved back. And in 2011, I had a baby and a toddler, and I remember running the bath for them and going downstairs, start dinner, and then running back upstairs and seeing a bath full of groundwater. But I grew up here, so I'm familiar with the flushing. I understand that it's important. I think most people do. I used to get the postcards, right, with your flushing date on it. And it was once a year, and now it's biannual. But since then, the issue has been compounded. This morning, I had brown water. I brushed my teeth with brown water for the 11th time this calendar year. And I'm hearing numbers like 5 years, 20 years, and to me that's absolutely terrifying, because I can't put up with this for another 5, definitely not 20 years. I can't even put up with this for another 1 year. I know that there's a lot of work that's being done, and you're knew you're stepping into this, right? We didn't create this. There's a long history here, but as somebody who does pay the water bill, and I know it's not a tax thing, I'd like to know, when is this plan going to be done? And Steve, to your point, I am one of those people. I want to know when my street is going to be done. And you had mentioned, keeping folks abreast of what's going on. The lack of transparency is probably worse than having the groundwater issues. And I'll tell you why, because I shouldn't have to guess when I'll be brushing my teeth. I literally, in July, I turned on my shower and A minute later, I looked down and said, oh my God, they didn't wash the hair dye out of my hair. They didn't get it all out. And then I realized, oh my God, that's not hair dye. I was literally taking a shower in water the color of espresso. I sent you a photo of it. That is unacceptable. I had to jump out and get bottles of freezing cold Evian water just to get the brown water out of my hair and my body. It's just not acceptable, but this is multiple times a year. You can't, like, my kids were babies and toddlers. They are now 13 and 15, and they're brushing their teeth in the same brown water as before. How is this still happening?
Right next to my house.
How is this? So there's 12 homes on my street. Many of them have well water, so there's not going to be a lot of complaints from our street, but I know that the neighbors have similar issues. And the flushing for most people in Pembroke, it's not biannual, and here's why. It might happen twice a year for what, like 64 days, right? There's brown water events from flushing alone for 64 days in this town. But for most people, it's not just during their time. So the last flushing, my time was from 7 p.m. to midnight. Great, I'm not gonna do anything, I'm not gonna do the laundry, I'm not gonna run my hot water, I'm not gonna do all the things you're not supposed to do. Except at 9 a.m. that day, we had no water. Our street was turned off completely. No notice. From 9 a.m. to noon, no water. Not even a drop. It was completely turned off. And we've noticed that, gosh, it's not just the 7 to 9 for Mountain Ash Lane's flushing. It's also this street next to me and this street over here. But the July, when I took a shower in espresso, oh, that was a water main break on Taylor Street that happened, but now they're doing the flushing because the water main break broke during the flushing in the spring. What? So now when we get the flushing schedule, now I have to follow Mountain Ash Lanes, oh, and this street, oh, and don't forget Taylor Street. Like, when can I shower? When can I brush my teeth? So brown water events are at least 4 days for us for each individual flushing. And then it's all the other events. Every single time a hydrant is touched near my home, for whatever reason, I don't know, the stations, the cast, I don't know. But it's a brown water event. And when you count all the days between the flushings, the fire flow test, the water flow test, any types of repairs, the 6 water main breaks this year, there's so many, there's 6 every year. And, you know, just regular use of the hydrants for fire, 89 days this calendar year, there's been a brown water event, and those are just the published ones. Those aren't the ones that, like this morning, I have no idea why I had brown water this morning. So for me, I would really like to understand, am I looking at 5 years to have access to clean water? Because we've got some of the best water in the state.
Like I said, so until we can minimize using Station 2, you're going to see that. The Swanberg Station is going to greatly improve the water quality in your area. It's low in iron and manganese. So that's mainly going to be your source water.
Dan, could you take a microphone?
Yeah.
I guarantee you, PAC TV's going to come out here in a second. You might want to leave that one for the public and take one.
Take one of those.
I actually grew up across the street from that Swanberg property on the Cranberry Bog.
Oh, really? But, so, it's been an issue, an ongoing issue. So that's why we're here, that's why we had the infrastructure meeting back in September. We have identified what needs to be done, and we are taking the actions. I can't speak to what happened before I was here. I've been here for a year and a half. Like I said, we have a lot of irons in the fire, doing the replacement well floor. If I could double the capacity out of that, then I don't have to use Station 2 at all. Swanberg coming online in a year and a half-ish. That'll be huge. We needed, these are the steps, this is the only way it's going to get better. We have
Can you
to,
blow out her line? I mean, it
Yeah, we
sounds
can
like a specific
Yeah, that
instance.
sounds like something that we should definitely.
yeah, I
explore.
recommend everybody just to call our office. They'll set up an appointment. I can do them
Yeah,
whenever somebody
And
calls.
and if anyone has any complaints, I don't care what someone writes on Facebook, I will not respond. It has to come, when I say I don't care, the town doesn't
So
care.
we were talking, so you had mentioned convenience, right? So we've got all these brown water events, and when I go on Facebook, I realize, oh my God, I'm the lucky one. Like, that's absolutely terrifying to me that people have so many more brown water events than me. Like, how? And, you know, with the form, for example, you know, I was the one that said, oh, you're not collecting any dates or times. How are you collecting any usable data? But the town did report that within those 2 days of the last fire flow testings, that there were 70 submissions of that form, but you didn't capture any of the dates or times. So I had posted that. I know a ton of people who filled that form out and want to know why they filled it out, because they had brown water the week prior.
Yeah.
But you weren't able to collect that data, right? So now that it's there, that's
Yeah.
awesome, and you know, I appreciate all the work everyone does, but I probably represent a larger, you know, part of this population of the citizens here. They're going to be asking the same question: when is my street? Or when are all the hydrants that impact my street and all those lines and all the mains? I feel like we were patchworked into, it's a newer development, you know, relatively speaking.
Yeah,
Were we
but the street
patchworked
gets tied
into,
off
like,
of,
is
it's
that
from
why?
1960.
Is that why we're impacted by so many other?
Like I said, there could be so many variables, because we're pumping water that has the manganese. Your house could be sitting in the belly of a road, obviously sediment's gonna settle, so maybe that section probably needs to be flushed more
Is
easily.
that a problematic
Okay.
area typically?
I'll tell you,
No.
to give you a little, the street that the main runs off of, Elm Street, that ties into Mount Ash Lane, crosses Spring Street and goes to the very lowest point, it's a valley, the very lowest point of Elm Street, that's my house. I have perfect water, I get a sprinkle of brown every time I know it's electric.
I know,
Just-
because we have
listen,
friends
cross
on
my
either
fingers.
side of me and they don't have brown water. I'm like, but how?
If that's it, like you said, if that's the case, we need to come out and investigate it. It might be something in your service line, accumulation in your hot water tank. Let us come out, at least then we can say,
But
all right,
it
we
is
have
the
a clean
others on our
slate.
street too, so it's not just, you know, our.
But nobody's been out to your house yet?
No one's been out to our house
So
yet.
wouldn't we then make an appointment to do so?
We should do that.
Yeah, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, and that might be one of the streets that needs a blowout too.
So that's what I
That
was,
loops over to Randall Street, there's an easement on top of Mountain Ash.
Oh, it goes right through, okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're
there's a
gonna
gate.
solve this until you have somebody come out.
no,
Let them
well,
at least come out and,
yeah, but the issue is though, this has been compounded. You
No,
know,
I
the
know.
street's only 25 years old, like it's.
So the whole
but it's
system's
getting-
connected, it's gonna travel. If there's a disturbance, it's gonna travel. We pump
Right,
water, we
but
gotta get it to the tank,
point
it's
is,
gonna
it
get
didn't
disturbed.
always do that. It's getting consistently worse each year, right? And if we're talking about 5 years, 20, that's terrifying. We will need to move. I can't do this
20 years
anymore.
is for other projects.
Okay.
The dirty water, we're hitting it hard within the next 5 years, and we're gonna see vast improvements in the next 2.
Yeah, I think you said that that Swanberg
half.
property is going to be a year and a half. So
Yeah.
can we expect that a year and a half or so is when, you know, someone like her would expect a significant improvement?
Yeah, because if we're not utilizing Station 2 for the majority of the year, and granted, we're gonna have equipment failures, and we're gonna have to use it at different points during the
So
winter.
she's not looking at 5 years,
No,
10
definitely
years,
not.
20 years, definitely not. You're looking at a
It's
year and a half, 2
this is
years.
We know what the issue is. It's the manganese that's pumped. Like that picture I showed you, that was by my house, that settled out. I get dirty water occasionally too, since we did the full flushing. Very rarely, only during events like the fire on Barker Street, the car fire the other day. I don't know what it's colored. It clears right up though. I ran my hose, cleared out.
Yeah, and for fires, I can totally understand the town won't have insight as to when that's going to happen, right? And they can't notify ahead of time. But
There's a lot
for
of
the fire
situations like
flow
that, though.
testing though, typically, there's a schedule for fire flow testing. I called and asked, what is the schedule? Susan told me, there is no schedule. I was just told to email out that the fire flow testing was happening on these 2 days. I said, but I need to know, because I need to know when I can put my laundry in. And I was told, just watch the water. But that doesn't work, because you watch the water and then you get in the shower and it's brown. You watch the water and it's clear and you put your laundry in and it gets ruined. And so when we, going back to this whole, what with the burden that we're putting on our residents, it's too much. You're asking them to don't put water in, don't cook, don't drink the water, don't do this, don't do this. Oh, and by the way, I know you can't use your water in the summer because there's restrictions and there's droughts and all these things, but then flush your water for 15, 30 minutes, and then it's not clear, do it again. It's like, I can't water my lawn, but now I'm gonna flush this. But I'm gonna do this 4 days, every single time there's a flushing, and I get the bottled water and do all the things. This isn't convenient. But also, by the way, you now go and fill out the form. What? Like, people aren't gonna fill out that. They're not. I have, but people just won't. And if we are not going to be where our residents are, which unfortunately, it sounds like unfortunately, is Facebook. I mean, if I were you, I would be looking at the past 10 years on the town government Facebook page and seeing what was posted and looking at those dates and, corresponding them to, what type of event was happening then. And, on Pembroke Connect, that's the best data you can get. We can say, oh, we're not going on Facebook, but unfortunately, that's where the residents are. They don't even realize that they're not even on a town-owned page. They think they're on a government page. Many of them, they do. They think the town owns that Pembroke Connect page,
Right,
but it's
but
so valuable with insights.
That would be very difficult for everybody to monitor and capture every complaint.
Yeah, and I don't
every
think,
But I think
but
they
I
do
think
fill
it's
out
a
the forms,
good,
though.
I think it's a good way to look back. Like, for example, people were posting live photos the week before the fire flow test. I think that's exceptionally valuable information because what was happening back
But we
I
did
do-
say that how many people
yeah.
filled out those forms.
I do think we need to drive towards people need to, we have the date and the time now,
Yeah.
which is great. We need to drive people towards using the form
And I
now.
did, and that's why
And
so
we-
many people filled
Yeah,
out the
and it's-
form
it's
that day,
excellent.
but they
And I
didn't
think-
have the date and time.
And that's
on
the
it.
solution. The solution is that's how we gathered the data.
Yeah.
We can't have somebody, pouring through every post, watching for posts
No,
and things like
but
that.
but
One
it
question- one
is
question-
good, though,
It is,
to
no,
look back historically and just get a
Absolutely.
sense, to document that would be outrageous.
There's only so much value that we can get from combing through Facebook. We really need people to go on the form, on the website, and we need to get the data
But
going
it
forward.
goes back
The
to the
one-
convenience thing. You've got people that have families,
One-
and they're
yeah,
just trying to get
absolutely.
through the day, and now they're
Absolutely.
pumping this, now they throw out this food,
Yep.
their laundry's ruined,
I
now I have
totally
to go fill out
understand.
a form.
I totally get it.
It's
And this is why we
just
need,
not realistic.
call the town, put the form through. If there's like the issue that you have, we're going to come out, we're going to send somebody out there, see what's going on. The other question I would ask is folks need to make sure that they're draining their tank, draining their boiler tank. A lot of folks maybe are not doing that, or they don't realize that they have to do that as often, or they wait a few years, and it builds up significantly. When you finally drain it, you get all that black buildup
And I
at the
think
bottom.
that's
It's like
why
oil.
transparency is so important when there's any type of brown water event that could cause discoloration.
When was the last time you drained your tank?
Oh, I don't know, that's a husband question.
Ask him, seriously, ask him. A lot of people, they let it sit for years until it gets to that point.
But it is scary, though, to have so many events, because it does have a negative
Absolutely.
impact on that,
Yep.
that tank.
100%.
Right, but it's like, it's, ruined laundry, buying bottles of water for when you have to clean yourself off, and it's like,
Absolutely.
if it's going to take 3 years, so I'm still going to be buying gallons of water and having them on standby so I can
So
rinse
think
off.
about the hot water tank conversation for a second, logically. You've said that you turn on the cold water, it's all great, hop in the shower, put the hot water on, it's brown. So the cold water and the hot water are not connected, they're two separate lines. So that could mean, it doesn't mean that it's possible that there's brown water in your tank, the sediment in your tank, so when you turn it on, it stirs it up.
Well,
That's a possibility.
this morning was cold water.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's every instance.
Can I just say something to the hot water tank thing?
Yeah.
So I just got a new hot water tank the first week of November. Brand new. 2 weeks ago I had brown water.
So if the cold water's dirty, it's gonna go into the hot water tank.
But
and you're gonna
she's saying
pull
she
it
has a
through.
recurring instance, and yours could just be the hydrant went, there was a fire somewhere, so of course it's gonna go into your system if you're using it. I'm just saying, there is a possibility that, just like we've seen the pipes get filled up with all that gook, your hot water tank can be getting filled up with it as well. So check it, and it's a simple check, it's a simple flush.
Since we don't have a tank. That's husband.
Oh, your taxes, okay, so.
See,
so
I told you,
that's-
husband department.
But it's something, even though it might not be your issue, a lot of folks should make sure that they check that nonetheless. if they're
So,
not-
so that's not our issue then, if we are tanking.
So
Can you
still,
go to her house?
this is what I just.
Absolutely. We'll drop the
I
meter
think you
off
really
and
need to
we'll
just
go
take
tomorrow.
this appointment.
I just, hang on one second, sorry, Tracy.
No, please
but
do.
I don't understand, can you explain, Dan, to not just this lady here, but to anyone that has recurring issues? When someone has recurring issues, why isn't the town at their house, pulling their meter and flushing it? Why?
Why do we have to continue to call?
So, all these discolored water incidences, as you draw it into your house, it's gonna settle, it's gonna scale inside the pipe wall. So, we've had success in some instances where it was just accumulated so much in the service line that we come in, we run the water through your line at a high rate, and it cleans all that debris out. It's helped countless times. A lot of times, like, that's it, and the people are shocked at what comes out. So like I said, every time you draw that black, brownish water in, it's gonna scale outside the inside of your service line. Especially if we're not receiving many other calls from your area, it would probably indicate that it's in your pipe. And that's something, the guys will come out, they'll take the meter off, hook a hose up, run it outside, and run it until it's clear.
So,
And if it's not, then we know there's something else on the
What's the
street.
process
But
for
until we
doing
get
that?
out there-
Because this has been, so, you must have contacted the town multiple
Lots.
times, right? So what's the process to make that happen? You just made it sound so easy. Why can't we do it? And how do we do it? What's stopping us? When someone calls 5 times, a specific resident calls 5 times, well, now an alarm bell goes off in your head, well, there's a problem here. It might be the neighborhood, it might be the street, or it just might be this one house. Can we go fix this one house? And so what's the mechanism for that?
I tell our office staff, so initially when they call, they say, please run the water for the 15 minutes like they recommend. If it doesn't clear up, call back. If it is still dirty, that's the point they'll recommend, hey, can we come out and flush the line? There are some people that are adamant they don't want us in their house. We've had people contact DEP saying they don't want us in their house.
And
But we
trust
can't
me,
help you if we can't come out, evaluate that situation, we can't also plan for the capital improvement projects, because if it's not just your house and it's a street issue, then we need to know that, so that way we can plan.
And we don't want to, as a town, pay for our DPW to go to everyone's house, pull the meter,
No.
flush the lines, but if there's an acute problem and a recurring problem,
Yeah.
there's a mechanism for it, but like, how many calls does it take?
At-
Every time you call, that data being tracked.
that's what I'd like to know.
So
What
they
does it
will
look like
log-
for the past 10 years? Like, how was data? I know, like, you
Well,
walked
they
into
log it
this,
in a
so-
file. I mean, to go back in everybody's account would take countless hours. So they do log.
Well, I want an
when you
answer
call.
to that, though. Like, how many calls does it take? Because
I'll send somebody out the first time. If somebody says it's
this has been
intermediate,
multiple times, so I don't,
I'd have to look at the file, yeah.
maybe it's not getting to the right person, maybe there's a better number to call, right? And I haven't read your report, so I don't know what they say or who they went to, but we're being told that there's been multiple calls in a single residence. You can get her information tonight, but if her next door neighbor has the same issues, having the same issue, like, who do they call and say, I have this once a
They
week,
have
once a month?
calls.
Are you just calling the
Please,
office?
please fill out the form.
Well,
Because
I do. I've
if you
done it
fill
like
out the
multiple
form,
times,
that
but-
data is being recorded now, okay? It won't be a situation where someone forgets to write something down
Yeah.
from a phone call. The data is being captured if you fill out
But
the
if
form.
someone does in fact call, though, there are a lot of residents who don't use the internet. If someone does in fact call, that should count just as much as the form.
Yeah.
And it should
They
be
will-
collected.
They do log it on the account. They have a notes file that she would log that a homeowner called.
And then how would you be alerted to that?
So our office staff, when they speak to the homeowner, they will say, did you try running it? Did it clear up? If it cleared up,
Right.
then chances are it's not a system issue, it's internal.
I mean, if there was an issue, how would you be alerted to that?
Sue would call me, say, well, we have technicians that routinely just do the meter changeouts and stuff like that. They normally don't come to me. I tell them, if it needs to be cleaned, just send the guys out, and we do that whenever needed. If it's a constant issue, they will let me know if there's anything unusual going on.
Did you want to say something,
Yeah,
Katrina?
I'm Katrina, sorry. I was just wondering, can you just have the staff fill out the same exact form? So when somebody calls, so that it's
being done.
Yeah,
in the
just
same
fill it
way.
out on behalf of, they just collect the, collecting
Yeah.
that data,
It's on the
information, like,
website.
who are you doing, what's your address,
Box
that's
that
the
says staff
information that's
member
going in the
filled
form.
it out,
Yeah.
That's a
whatever.
great idea.
Box, check box.
It's a good idea.
And then what triggers, all right, we filled out the form 5 times this month. Is there a trigger for that, or do those forms just go as data that this, like, is
So
it?
those get emailed to myself, my administrative assistant,
Like you.
and if you want, we add it to the form, if you want to call back, because some people just want to document it, they don't want to be bothered.
Yeah,
Please provide your phone number, we'll call you back. At that point, she's going to ask you a series of questions. If you want us to come out, we have no problem coming out. We do it whenever we need to. If it's the first time,
important to
second
note as
time.
well, we have a new water superintendent, and he's collecting data, and he's putting a plan together, and the more people that do fill out that form could change his plan in the next 6 months. So if you really want this addressed, and you're really having an issue, filling that form out is important, because he could change and say, hey, I'm starting to see a lot over here, and then you might look into what pipes are over there and decide that's the direction we're going to go in.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, every once in a while you run into a resident, they're like, it's been dirty for 30 years, and I'm like,
But
do you
they don't
call?
say anything, I know.
Exactly. So
I know.
But we get used to now.
There's people that are just used to it and they don't, so it makes it very hard coming in to see the grand picture when people are accustomed to it, and they don't think it's as big of a deal as other people that just moved to town.
Well, I did urge folks today to stop complaining and take action and to attend this meeting because the town
We're
can't help
happy-
if they
we're
don't
happy to have
know.
anybody's input.
You can't read minds. I'm filling the form, so I feel like I have, a right, I have a voice, right? But if you don't show up.
Did you fill one out today? Because I don't think I got it.
I have not filled one, I
Okay.
emailed you today, I
You
have
just
not
emailed.
filled out the form yet because my life is too crazy right
No,
now.
no, it's fine. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing it, because when you said that, I was like, I think I've only seen one from you.
And you can share your contact information with Dan today. If
What's
you
that?
You already have her contact
Oh,
information?
yeah, we've been
Okay.
back
Yeah, I
and
have her
forth.
email,
Yeah.
So then
if
you
you
can
want,
make an
we can set up
appointment
an
to.
appointment.
We're best
somebody out
friends.
there. Okay, I'm so glad. Well,
Well, like I
But
said, all the
I do
information is
appreciate the
very-
work you do. I know you stepped into this, I know, like, I am very mindful of that. But you stepped in at a point where I've had enough.
And you're not
And-
alone. A lot of people are in the same boat.
And I wish more people would stand up and speak because I do believe that I feel like I'm one of the fortunate ones and that's terrifying. But thank you.
Thank you, Kaisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katrina, come on up.
Thanks. I'm Katrina Delaney on Wintergreen Farm. Thank you so much for that information. It was really helpful. I just was hearing some things and I feel like there's little fixes that could hopefully make communication easier, just ideas. Having some kind of flyer with the link to the form, a visual that people can like start to recognize that has the logo for the town or whatever, is really just like a visual that says, when you have brown water, this is what you do. You can either fill this out or call, so that they start to recognize it as a visual, I think could be helpful. You could even put a QR code on it and have the link. You can like click on them, whatever you want. So that's an idea. The other one was about potentially just having the staff fill out the exact same form so that all the data is going into one place. You could even have a checkbox that says, I'm a staff member, or I'm a resident, and that's how you could collect it. Then you don't have to be looking in multiple places. Another thought was, I know you mentioned that some people don't want, you offer at the second call generally, and they don't necessarily all want somebody to come out. But I'm wondering, could you have a statement that says, okay, but I want you to understand that if we don't come out, then we can't get to the root of the problem, and you might actually still have brown water. So do you understand that? And get them to say that, because you're getting them to say that we know that this is going to happen if we don't come out. Because it sounds like they're not quite understanding that piece, that you can't get to the root of it if you're not coming out.
Some people are stubborn.
True, but at least then you can say that you said that
Yeah.
every single time somebody called, and nobody will be like, why aren't you, that was just an idea. The other piece I was thinking about was there were different steps that you talked about, like first we'll do this, then we'll do this. You kind of go through like some sort of a workflow that you do when you're diagnosing a problem, it sounds like. Is there a way to create a visual for that to show people, like, if I get a call, this is what I'm going to do, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, so that people can see the flow of events, because you know what that is, but I think having it be boiled down to the easiest digestible thing, which for me is like a little visual. I love visuals, apparently. Then that way you can share it when people have questions without necessarily needing to come to a meeting, and that can start to become part of people's knowledge of how things work when you have a problem with the water.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. We actually, as part of the Station 2 and 3 design, we toured a couple of facilities that have recently been built with communities that are having the same issues. And I saw some of the material they put out. So that is something we were looking to update. Bill recently had Sue Glob and start working, updating the website. So I was going to ask her to put something on like that. What we ask you to do, and then we could certainly have that form at the end.
Yeah.
Please fill this out. We'll come out and flush your lines.
Yeah, some like communication PR materials so that like you're doing all this work and it's a lot, and you only have been in the position for a year and a half, so you can't solve 100 years of problems in a year and a half. But I think part of it is just communicating what's being done could solve some of the issues of folks feeling like nothing is being done. Because in fact, you've talked about how much has been done in terms of the numbers of feet of pipe that have been replaced. Doesn't change the fact that people are still having issues, but you're also doing a hell of a lot, it sounds like. So I feel like that needs to be recognized so that there won't be, people can direct their questions and complaints to the right formats.
That was another topic. We talked about having a link for water department projects, updates when we get contracts, project schedules, stuff like that.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
We would like to try and make the website more friendly, up to date. We are spending a lot of money. People want to know how it's spent and where we're at.
Right, right.
So just as a quick comment, I am working very hard to institute some changes in our outreach to the town. You're going to see some changes, not just with the water department and projects, but DPW and other things that are ongoing throughout the town. You're going to see that the video screens at the community center, the video screen in this building. You're going to see us projecting information in a very different manner than we have.
Visuals.
Correct.
Modernization.
Awesome. I love it. That's great. Fantastic. Thank you. One other question, and this is just my lack of understanding of how the water system works. It might be totally fine. You talked about Station 2 being at a certain level that was higher than the regulation, right? But that's not being the water that's actually being accessed by people. That's just at the station?
No, so
Maybe I didn't understand it.
The state has secondary contaminant levels and primary. So primary, we cannot exceed. It'd be a violation. We'd have to notify the public. This is a secondary. It's not a health concern. It's an aesthetic.
Oh, okay.
There's different ones that are aesthetics. Manganese falls under aesthetics unless you cross the threshold of the 0.3, which we haven't.
Okay.
The other thing to consider is we do have other sources pumping at the same time that source is pumping, so you're not really seeing that 0.2 going out. It's blending, being diluted somewhat, depending on how the water's flowing at that time.
Got it.
So it's not, nobody's really seeing that 0.2.
Okay, got it.
But
That
that's
was-
why we only run Station 2 when the other stations are running to minimize that situation.
How much
too.
goes in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, there's a lot of factors on trying to minimize the issues that we have now and utilize the equipment that we do.
And that was, and I know you mentioned it wasn't even tested until like the 2000s for the manganese?
So manganese was tested. Clearly, I had a record from 1989. They didn't really start investigating it as a health concern on the federal level until then.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate your
Thank you.
feedback.
Anybody else? Can you identify yourself?
Allison Glennon. So there's 3 wells currently?
We have 4 wells.
4. Okay, can you tell us, like, because you number them, like where they are? Because I think you're saying 4 is the one that's filtered. So I'm curious which one that is.
So Station 4 is located on Sandy Lane off of Tool Trail. So if you go down West
Yeah.
Street, Tool Trail, Sandy Lane, wells 4 and 5 both pump to there. They're both filtered. Station 2 is located at 570 Center Street. It's actually at the intersection of West Street, down a hill behind somebody's house. And then well 3 abuts that property. It's located on School Street, but it abuts that Center Street. That's why we're able to put the plant.
Those are laid out on the town zoning map. If you go to the town website or just Google Town of Pembroke zoning map, there's a circle, wellhead 1, wellhead 2, wellhead. et cetera.
Okay, and then those, so 2 and 3 are the dirty ones? What, the ones,
two's the main issue.
the unfiltered?
Yes.
Okay, and then they're pumped to the tanks that are above ground, like,
Yeah, so the
that we
system's a
can
big
also-
network, just like you have highways, secondary roads, neighborhoods. We have the big main running through the middle of town, the main drag, and then the pipes get smaller as we branch out further in the system. So yes, every day the tank levels drop, it signals the pumps to come on, we start filling it up to maintain pressure in the system and have water for firefighting capabilities. We hit a certain level when it's just about full, we shut off, we start draining back down, they come back on. It's a
so they
cycle,
all can
constant cycle.
fill to any of the tanks, really, like?
Yeah, so hydraulically, you can kind of see, obviously, most of Station 2's water is going to North Pembroke.
Mhm.
That's why we're seeing that. Like I said, that cup was from 1,000 feet from my house. That was in that picture, when we were flushing.
So I've seen fluoride being discussed on different boards. What's going on there? Like, why?
So the town voted to put it in the water back in, I think, '68. The town would have to vote to remove it. The CDC,
Is
if
the
you go on
town
the
looking to move in that direction?
That's a Board of
The
Health.
Board of Health is discussing it, that's all I can say. They're an elected board, elected by you. I
So we-
can't tell them what to do or not
Yeah,
to do.
whatever we're told to put in the water, we put it in the water. So the town voted for it to promote dental health. The CDC strongly recommends it. Obviously, it's been a hot topic. If the town votes to remove it, we'll remove it. I would love to know before we build a plant and spend $250,000 on
Fluoride.
putting that in, but that's not gonna happen at this point.
So when you say the town votes on it, it's the people of Pembroke vote on it at town meeting?
Yes,
This
so I
board
think-
does not vote on it, no
No.
board votes on it, it's the people that vote.
Well, I think the Board of Health, it falls on, fluoride falls under the Board of Health. We just put it in the water because the Board of Health,
And the Board of Health has been discussing this.
yes.
Can-
But I think the Board of Health has to bring it to town meeting. The town has to vote. The state can still say no.
Can that be brought to a meeting as an update on what they're looking at?
It's not the jurisdiction of this board, it is their jurisdiction. They are elected officials with an independent.
No, I understand.
And they post their meetings. So
Yeah,
you could
they
attend
met-
one of their
They met
meetings.
this afternoon.
Okay. I'm just curious, like, because
Yeah.
are those ones, those ones aren't recorded, right? Those meetings?
They're not.
Okay. Okay.
I
And
would-
then,
I would like to, but
okay,
They could use a phone.
yeah.
Without the secondary.
Right, okay. So for High Street that's been passed, are those lines being connected to, like, how are they being connected to the side streets? And what is the downtime for residents?
So service interruptions, the way we lay main now, we're gonna run the entire new water main down the street, or we might stop halfway and then start tying people. But so we're gonna lay the water main, everybody's gonna be on the old water main. We're gonna flush it, chlorinate it, flush it again, sample it, make sure it's bacteria free. At that point, we'll start transferring people over. People should have minimum interruptions. When we go to tie in some of the side streets, we may have to shut down for a 2-hour period, just to tie it over, depending on the layout. There are means of tying a street in with a tap and steam gate. It's very expensive. Sometimes, depending on how many people it's gonna impact, we may opt just to have them cut and transfer the service over. If it's only gonna impact people for 2 hours and save $15,000. So it's kind of evaluated on a case-by-case situation. But we try to minimize that. Those will all be, my goal is 2 days notification for any shutdown like that. That's what we did on the Oldham Street project. We gave everybody's 2 days notice. We stuck to that pretty hard, and we held a contract to it.
But it's just the High Streets, not the mains going on to the side streets aren't being replaced?
No, so we're just
the
doing High Street,
connections.
and we're gonna tie those streets into High
And
Street.
is it Barker to the Duxbury line, give or take?
Correct, yep,
Okay,
yep.
okay. I think that's all my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions before we move on?
I have a couple quick questions.
Sure. Can you
My name is
identify?
Patrick McMahon. I've lived in town for 42 years. I live on Phillips Road. We have brown water at least once a week. And I flush my shower for like 30 minutes, just the cold water, so it's not my hot water tank. This year we've probably lost about $2,000 of clothes, which my wife is not thrilled about. There is no rhyme or reason, but in our house, we definitely can't take a shower and do laundry. We can't take a shower and do dishes. We just almost always have brown water. So I'm
So
definitely gonna have
it
you
seems-
flush my main.
It seems to be when you're using multiple appliances.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, definitely let us come out there. I think that's something we
Yeah.
can solve.
And then my only other question was, because you kind of brushed over it quick, so we have a lot of asbestos piping. You did say we were just about due for a test. How often do you test the asbestos piping, and what is the standard we have to meet?
So, I think the next time we're supposed to test is 2030. So with all these samples that DEP requires us to take, if you're consistently testing well below limits or no detects, which I believe that's what that was, they'll give you a waiver so that way you don't have to monitor it. But then they make you, it's all in their rules and regulations. We have strict guidelines that you have to sample so often. Unfortunately, like with the manganese, that's what they did. You're under this level, 9 years went by, now you get to start sampling again.
But when was the last time we tested?
I'd have to look back. I think it was, I'd have to look at it.
For clarity, though, we test every single year, and we publish it. We test the system.
The CCR, yeah.
The CCR.
Yeah, so not every.
I just want to make sure the public understands that the water is tested
Yeah.
on a constant basis. You were asking about a very specific element in the
It's
water.
only tested, it's not going to be tested until 2030 for the asbestos test.
So, Mass DEP has a research division, and they understand, all right, if it's showing no presence of breaking down, then they're okay, and then they'll revisit it. Everything we do meets the federal standards, which are enforced by the state. So we just follow whatever regulation they have.
So the last testing we did, we weren't even close enough to have to worry about.
Correct. So they said, you have no concerns, we're going to issue a waiver.
I just wanted clarity, because it was like a quick rush over, like, we're almost due or almost
Yeah, so
about time to
that's
do
probably going to be
testing.
more the master plan, because like I said, we're planning out 20 years, and I want to start tackling that, because like Bill mentioned, if that starts to fail, it's going to be catastrophic failures. So where we have so much, we have to be proactive with that before we get to that point. So we don't want to be in a situation with dirty water where we're having breaks all the time. So we are looking to be proactive going forward with all aspects.
So the form that you have to fill out, I just heard about the form. Is this a link that you go to and it's
It's
on
on
the
our
town
website.
page?
Yep.
It's on the DPW webpage. It says,
So like, this is a link that when, like, if I saw somebody commenting on Facebook, I could post it, like, go to the link and.
Yeah,
I mean.
there's no, like,
I'm with
verification.
them on the fact that, like, I have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old. My wife works in Boston. She drives, it's like 15-hour days. And now she has 2 kids that can't take a shower because she has brown water. So now they're going to bed unshowered. So now she has to get up extra early to now bathe them in the morning. And we have to get up early.
Yeah.
I have to flush it for 40 minutes before they can shower. So now you're asking this mom that's been out for 15 hours, me that's been out at work, to now go online and fill out a form that day to make sure she can remember, because the 9 million other things she has to do, she has to fill out a form. I mean, it seems like this is what we're talking, it's like the young moms in town that are upset that, like, I can't bathe my kids, I can't wash my hair, and now you want me to fill out a form.
But they're posting on Facebook. It takes less time to fill out a form than it does to post on Facebook.
I would totally disagree with you. It takes longer to go
It's-
find a town website, go find the link on a town website and post, versus
I'm gonna
something you're
put this
checking with
thing
family.
out there everywhere I possibly
Yeah.
can. Because
It's super aggravating. I'm sure it's super aggravating, but it would just be really difficult to try to find the complaints on Facebook
And I
regularly.
mean,
Like,
I'm
how
in
would
my
you find
40s,
it?
so like,
and I feel really
I'm a
bad for
generation, we would fill out a form, but like, you're starting to get younger generations that don't even know what a form is. They know what a social media is. They don't know what forms are. Like,
But
that's
we
what
wanna
you
be
need
able to
to,
help
like,
you. We need to be
that's
able
the
to help
problem,
you.
is like, younger generations don't understand forms. They're like, but they don't get forms, but they get social media, I'm sorry.
But I
you know?
understand.
Yeah.
No, I understand it's
But,
aggravating.
like,
but it would-
I will definitely, like, it, once I get that link, I will save it and I will share it. But-
Any opportunity, I mean, I know we.
it's
we-
out there.
There's, I'm not gonna speak for anybody else, and I'm not gonna obligate anyone else. I try to, whenever I see anything on Facebook, even Pembroke Connect and whatnot, I try to share the form on there, I try to communicate with folks. Some of us do that, but we need to collect the data, and we need the data in a productive way. It just would not be productive to have people, combing and looking through Facebook. It's not productive. We need the data, we need people to use the forms. The one good thing is that now with the date and the times that are on the form, if you don't have time in that moment to do it, and you just remember when the event happened, then when you do get some time, then fill out the form.
Yeah.
And I know it's frustrating to have to even deal with this, but we're gonna get through it over the course of the next, 1, 2, and 3 years. It's gonna get better and better with everything that we're doing. In the meantime, we just need people to help us on the other side as well and bring that data to us so we can attack it much more productively.
And I know it's not ideal, but maybe they can call on the way to work, just.
Well,
as
the
a
nice
last-
thing
as a
was, like,
last
the
resort.
water department right now, which I believe you're saying, if I call, you make a note in my file. But like, why can't we have like a live spreadsheet that you're making a quick note on another screen that, it happened, and that transcribes to a master spreadsheet?
Yeah,
like you're
I'm gonna
getting
solve
lots
that
of
problem
complaints.
So I apologize. They do have a binder in there that they started recording calls in. It's not on an Excel spreadsheet. It's
It's like-
handwritten right now.
Yeah, but like a spreadsheet, I mean, one spreadsheet can talk to another. You can have this spreadsheet that you're just clicking, and that's tying into a master sheet telling you, these are all the times, these are the streets, this is where we're having the most problems.
So can I just want to tie two things together. People filling out the form, and we're asking them to because it provides us the data, and they're saying that it's more difficult. It's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze on that. I'll just complain on Facebook. So my question is, if they call and they actually get someone at DPW, why can't the person from, and this was mentioned before, but I want to bring it up again. Why can't the person that's on the other line from DPW fill out the form as
Tomorrow
she's
morning, they're
she's
going to
driving
be,
work?
tomorrow morning, they're going to be instructed by me, when you get a brown water call, fill out the form, so we have it recorded.
Do we have
That's
it?
easy enough.
Settled.
So that's the plan.
Very easy. Yeah,
Good, settled.
yeah.
It'll make it more efficient.
But
Then it'll be in a
I-
spreadsheet.
I
with
understand.
all due respect, please help us help you. And I'm gonna tell, not just you folks, because you folks are proactive, but everybody else who's out there, if you get a brown water in your, discolored water in your system, take the 30 seconds or a minute to fill out that form, because it's gonna help us help you in the long run.
Can that data be exported to Excel right now?
Yes,
I haven't
it's-
seen how it's
It is
exported.
absolutely recorded. It is absolutely there. You get an email, she gets an email as soon as someone puts submit, but it also gets recorded so that we have a database of it.
And Bill, you're not asking people just to fill out the form to complain.
No.
If you get a brown water event, and even if you knew, you seen the truck in front of your house, they're flushing the hydrants, you could fill out the form and just document that, yep, we got brown water, it's not affecting us, but we want to help the town with their data collection.
It creates a database for us. And in 6 months, a year, or 2 years, we're gonna have all that data accumulated. We're gonna be able to identify on Phillips Road that there is that there is an issue. And it's, for whatever reason, it's 7 houses or it's 2 houses. Same thing with Mountain Ash Lane. Is it 1 house or is it 10 houses? We're gonna have all that data if people just take the time to do that. I've done it just through a testing process to make sure everything works. It's literally 30 seconds to a minute.
But yeah, to your point, absolutely call. We'll enter it.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
Yeah, I'll call in, because I definitely want to get, I have, my driveway's 400 feet long, so I have a
You have a
really
long,
long main.
yeah, you're definitely a candidate.
Probably what the problem is.
Well, I mean, I don't always have brown water, I have clear water a lot, and then all of a sudden my water goes from clear to basically,
In your
Like you said, using multiple
looks like a sewer
appliances.
pipe.
in your service line, it's likely that settles out. When we flush out it.
Well, I live up way on a hill, so my line would drain back down.
And that's exactly what happens. If there's a fire or an event where there's low pressure, your line is likely having a low pressure event, which then creates that turbulence in your service line. And when it repressurizes, it brings that dark.
Yeah, and your neighborhood's kind of like an odd neighborhood, being out in a little peninsula. It's like this little.
Well, they tie into Furnace
It's almost an
Hall.
island.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Well, I
do.
feel
tie
like when
into
you
Furnace
flush
Hall.
hydrants, I don't know if we're at the start of the line, because it seems like the entire time you flush, we have brown water, even if, not just when they do our street, the entire time.
So unfortunately, I mean, it even says in the engineering directions, expect dirty water calls. When we go out to unidirectional flush, they say it's the most efficient way, but we're closing valves, we're changing the direction of flow in other areas that aren't being flushed. So there are other areas that are impacted. as we mentioned in previous discussions about flushing, let us know, because if I can have the engineers adjust the zone, make it bigger, so that way areas aren't impacted, we will. Can't always be done, but like I said, with the flushing program, since I've been here, any improvements we can make, we're happy to make, whether it's notifications. If we can get data from residents to improve it, we will. It's not always feasible, but if we can, we will incorporate it.
Yeah. I'll fill out a form and definitely make the call.
Great.
Absolutely. I don't complain on Facebook, but I was waiting to figure out, like, what
And
can
that's
we do?
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to post on Facebook. I'm not saying don't do that. What I'm saying is, tell us. If you want to post on Facebook,
I'm
not gonna
kind
tell you
of
not to.
disappointed, because, like, I was wondering why you were having this meeting here. I'm like, I figured half the town was gonna show up. So, like, the fact that
Well, I think the
there's so
commission
many
meeting, we
empty
had
seats,
numbers.
and the amount of people you have to
We
watch
weren't
complain
quite
about the
sure.
water, I'm like,
And we
where is
published-
everyone?
We published the hell out of this meeting. I went on WATD this morning.
I posted that you
and
should
talked
go.
about it. And-
Everybody posted
We
it.
all did.
It's like,
It's just like,
why is there
you know-
10 people in the room when there's thousands complaining about water every day? I mean,
This is the most people that have been here in a long
I
time, too,
know.
by the way.
This is a full house.
It's just-
yeah, it's, you know,
how often do you guys meet?
every
Every
2 weeks.
week.
Every 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. 42 years. I just found that out.
We hope to see you
Perfect.
again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but thank
good
you very
terms.
much. We appreciate what you're doing. Like, I do, you know.
And we appreciate the residents that did come out, because like I said, this is all good feedback.
I'm just saying.
When I ask for
like,
information, it's
Exactly, like,
good.
you know,
And I'm-
that people are just complaining on Facebook. It's like, I'm, like,
Yeah,
you need to
if I,
figure out how.
if I came across that I'm complaining about people that can post on Facebook, I'm not. I just want the data for us.
Yeah.
I want to be selfish about it. Give us the data so we can work hard to fix it.
Yeah, I think that's a
Like the
good
links-
point. Post on Facebook, please, continue that. But for
Well, like
a
if I have
public
a link,
official,
yeah.
like, we're nosy neighbors, so we're always on there looking.
Yeah.
But we can't we really shouldn't as a public official be posting on Facebook. Maybe it's like a couple links or something here and there, but.
It can't be systemic, it's not
Yeah, it's not-
systemically
it's not
monitored.
I
it's
try,
not how you run
if you
an
gave me a
airline.
link, like, when I happen to see somebody say something, I will literally just share them the link, like,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna say anything or do anything if I don't have something to give them to help them.
Yep.
I'm just gonna, what do you do? You should have gone to the meeting, I guess. There's a link.
Post the form.
So now, when I get the form, yeah, I'll post the form
So,
every time.
again, tomorrow morning, that link's going to be on the front page of our website.
Okay,
So,
I'm sure somebody.
probably in a
post it
big
on
red
Facebook.
banner.
I'm sure. We are going to put the presentation on the website as well.
We are, yes. So, I'd love to say I'm going to do that tomorrow. Unfortunately, I was the only one in the office today because of illness, so
Right.
we will do it as soon as possible. I think Sue's going to be here, so, not the Sue there, but the Sue
Yep.
upstairs. So I think we'll get it done tomorrow.
Excellent.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, we can do this on the final page, sure. We'll do
The
enough.
forms does a resident have to fill out before you take action to go out to their house and check it out?
I don't think we've had that many forms filled. The forms have only been active for,
Month.
How
yeah,
many
maybe a
forms
month.
have you done?
Okay.
Yeah, it's only been
Can't,
active for.
can't the resident ask you to come out?
Have you
Absolutely.
But I
If
did-
you call, we will
But I
call
filled out
tomorrow.
forms
It's
on
not
the
an issue.
website.
Yeah, not an issue at all.
Confused, I didn't.
Yeah, no.
You have to fill out the form so
Part of
many
our job
times.
is customer service. If you call and you want us out there, we will come out there. There's some people that don't want you in their house, and other people are happy to let you in.
Well, if you got dirty water, why wouldn't you?
You'd be surprised.
Does anybody else have any
Thank you
other
very
comments
much.
or
I appreciate
questions?
Just quick, I'm sorry.
Katrina?
Okay, hi Katrina. Is there, so I'm wondering about, for, similar to that question, there's usually a way you can create some sort of automation to, when it hits a certain number, it'll just turn red or even send you an email so that you don't even have to monitor the spreadsheet. It can just be done.
I do water.
Totally, but like, could we get it, somebody in town knows how to do that
internal
for you.
Excel.
I
Yeah.
figured, I might be
Bill's
able to
So,
help you.
so we can do it if we
Literally.
download the data, but unfortunately, our website is built in the language.
It won't support,
But
okay,
we can download the data and do data analysis.
yeah.
Once
And
once a month, see how many, we do it, just
how
do
many
it.
times this
If I
address.
download the data and just do a cross tab in Excel, it's gonna tell me, I can do very quickly how many,
The same address, how
Same
many times it
address
was
matches.
hit, yeah. Yeah, so if anyone's watching who knows how to do that, reach out to this
No,
person right here.
We can do it, we just can't automate it in Drupal.
Yeah,
The
okay.
version of Drupal we're using.
That doesn't allow for that, okay. I know that you mentioned that the way that water projects are funded is through the enterprise fund, and that has to be passed through town meeting. So, for people that are worried about the cost of their water going up, what happens if we don't do all of these things you mentioned? Mayhem, but can you explain it so that maybe it's on record and we can point back to this if we don't do it?
It is really, we're at a point within our water system where if we don't start to take action, we've already started to take action, but if we don't continue down that plan, I've only been here 4 years, Dan's only been here coming up on 2, I believe. You know, one of the things we recognized very early in my tenure here was that we had a problem in our water system. And we immediately tried to start taking action to correct that. If we don't continue, it's going to be catastrophic. We're going to see these mains. I've seen mains in my career that are 12-inch mains that are now 2-inch mains. You think you have a problem today with brown water, when a 12-inch main goes to 2-inch main, you're going to constantly have that problem. Plus, you're going to have pressure problems, you're going to have firefighting suppression, fire lines in buildings are not going to function as they should.
So you might not have water
It's
consistently.
just catastrophic.
If you don't do that, like
We
access
won't
would be
have
a
the
problem.
sources that we're developing, we won't have the water wells that we're replacing, we won't have the mains that we're replacing to carry that water, and we won't have the storage when we put the new tank on Oak Street.
Sounds really bad, so let's
Yes.
not do that.
Everything we're recommending is
And I will
essential
note,
right now. Everything
I
is
will note,
essential.
For our residential customers, we are the lowest of all the comps. We did that whole comp sheet that we looked at back a month and a half ago. We have the lowest water system of all of those for our low-end residential users. For our businesses, we are higher. We are just over the middle of the pack for our businesses. Their cost is much higher than some of the folks that we are comparable to, the high-end users. However, our residential users, we are the lowest cost for water of all of our neighbors and several comparable communities in the region.
Well, yeah, it makes sense. I know you said for 10 years the water fees didn't go up, and so I think we're seeing the effects of that. So they need to go up if we want their water to be better, it sounds like. Okay. You also talked about the master plan. Is it possible to have that posted before the meeting so people can come with questions?
Oh, next October?
Yeah, next October.
I don't see why they couldn't.
That'd be great. I just
Yeah.
think, like, for myself, obviously I have ideas that come up and then I'm just
Yeah.
talking in the middle of everything.
So the answer to that is yes. However, I will create a caveat to that answer. If we want to do it on October 15th and we get it from the engineers on October 15th, we won't be able to get that out
Can we
there.
create a gap between when we're getting it and
That's
when the meeting is?
That's certainly the goal. We will tell the engineers we need it by X date.
So it's supposed to be
for-
done in October, it might not be till the end of October, so, yeah, if you want to say, we want 2 weeks for the public to digest it.
Or just
I mean,
have
that's
2 weeks and then it
yes.
ends up being less, whatever, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. As long
And don't
as
forget,
there's a
as we
gap.
discussed too, there's gonna be updates through milestones. So
Yeah.
we're gonna do milestone updates as well. There's gonna be plenty of opportunities for folks to absorb that information, ask questions, and so on and so forth.
It's an engineering calculation too, more than a public input.
Correct. Yeah.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
It's not.
It's not like the master plan, like what kind of town do we want to be in 10 years? It's
Exactly.
what do we need? What does the hydraulic engineer say that we need?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
just understanding and
It's
asking
dry.
questions for understanding. I know it's not gonna change the plan, I don't know
Yeah.
how to run a water system.
Well, yeah, no, but the presentation, that'd be good for people to view. That's why we want it posted. Like I said, we're going to be investing a lot. We want people to see that we're heading in the right direction. We're going to stay in front of it.
Yeah, awesome, thank you.
Aline, did you? Come on up.
Just a quick question, Aline Flashman, School Street. You're talking about having people going and flushing their lines and such. For the people who are suspicious, could they approach something like that if they have a pressure thing, turn up the pressure, and then flush the line with the hose outside? Would that approach any help at all for them, or not? It wouldn't be fast enough?
It's hard to say.
There's so many variables.
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know.
I mean, in theory, if you ran every fixture in your house, you might be able to create enough disturbance, but I can't. Every house is different, because right after the pressure reducing valve, you might only have half-inch pipe. Some homeowners might have 1-inch pipe.
So you're.
Yeah, so we're taking that meter out, so there's no restriction. We're using a 1-inch hose out the side, so we get the most flow that we can through the line.
Bob, did you have something?
Just a quick one, like Bob Kenny, Taylor Point Road. I think what you're doing is great, it's wonderful, and I know the answer to my question, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. I have a well, I want brown water, I can't get it. So maybe someday when we're doing the master plan, I know it's not in my lifetime, maybe I'll get water.
You're off McQuan?
My Taylor Point Road.
Is that off McQuan?
Yes.
Okay, so, yeah, right now, we don't currently have a main down there. It's only Abington Rockland. Yeah, and I don't think they're taking any new customers right now. They're hurting for water, too.
That's coming beside his house.
Yeah, that is something we have discussed.
Oh, yeah, it's right there, yeah.
That is something we have discussed going forward. We need to look at a lot of these communities that were neighborhoods built around the pond. Some of them don't have public water. They have wells, and then the wells may be infiltrated with nitrates from septic systems. It becomes a real issue. So that is something we need to look at. But it's tough because they're all paper roads, or they might just not even be roads. You know, you're actually driving to somebody's yard. Yeah.
Well, you have real asphalt, doesn't mean it's a real road.
Well, it's an asphalt road.
So, on the planning board, you wouldn't believe how many little neighborhoods around the pond want a little help.
He's not on an accepted road.
It's an unaccepted road.
I understand, I'm trying to explain to the public, the pavement goes down here, but if you look on paper, there's a house right in the middle of that was never built. They built them over here because they wanted to.
Maybe someday.
Anybody else? Dan, that was wonderful, thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
answering everybody's
thank you.
questions. I really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Just the more information we get out, the better.
One last thing, Dan. So you've been working in this position for how long?
Coming up 2 years in April.
So I think, you know, this board really appreciates it. I think the public, once they get to speak with you, can understand that you're not even here completely for 2 years. And I think you've been the face of the water department and a voice for the water department to the public more than they've seen in a long time. And, you know, that's no disrespect to the old regime, but you're a new guy and you're being, you're going out there and making stuff happen for the people and you know, honor everything you've said and we'll be happy.
Yep. Well, we appreciate that. All of our staff do take pride in what we do. It's a unique career, and if you know anybody interested,
We're hiring.
good field to get into.
We're hiring. Go get your water licenses, we're hiring you.
Oh,
Not only
my.
that, but you live in town, and you get brown water.
Occasionally I do.
You're one of the many.
Like I said,
Are
that
you filling
cup
out
was
the form?
That was the first one. I did it before but that cup was from 1,000 feet away from my house. That's what came out of the main, so. Like I said, since we did the full flush, dramatically it's dropped off. And like I said, we needed a clean slate, flush the system, and now we can really identify the problem areas. That's what we're doing.
And the more we unidirectionally flush, the better it will get, along with the capital improvements.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We have no more comments. Upcoming issues on January 22nd, warrant vote opening a new warrant on February 3rd, and all warrants closing on February 14th. February 5th, we have the town manager's FY25 budget update. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.